Chapter 304. Luo Nan quietly gazed at the world before him. He remained motionless for a long time. Even when Xue Lei flipped onto the viewing platform and called out to him, Luo Nan did not respond. Xue Lei was a bit frightened. From his perspective, Luo Nan's face was stained with blood and tears. It was painted into a devilish face. Blood seeped from the corners of Luo Nan's eyes, and Luo Nan's eyes were completely red. Luo Nan should be sent to the hospital immediately. Hey, which one of you two is going to say something? Zhang Yingying, who had been ignored for a long time, slapped the steering wheel. Sister Ying, I think Nanster's state isn't right. Xue Lei was flustered. He rushed to ask Zhang Yingying for advice. However, Luo Nan's calm state of mind was very similar to Gym Master Xiu's usual demeanor. Xue Lei subconsciously lowered his voice, afraid of disturbing Luo Nan. Before he could receive a response from Zhang Yingying, Luo Nan's voice suddenly rang in his ear. The breath of heaven and earth may not be impossible to find. These words came out of nowhere. Xue Lei was stunned, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He carefully pondered a few times before remembering that this was related to the Gym Master's fate theory. He had spoken of this to Luo Nan some time ago. However, the Gym Master's original intention was to say that the world was vast and the human strength was minuscule. Cultivators needed to constantly work hard and be attentive in all aspects. Only then could they borrow the power of heaven and earth for their own use. What stood out was that the mind was before the energy, and the energy was before the strength. The core of Luo Nan's words seemed to have changed. Xue Lei did not quite understand Luo Nan's thoughts, but he was worried about Luo Nan's state. He could only ask cautiously, Nanster? The flow and operation of the river, the existence and destruction of the forest, all have rules. They form their own systems. They can be said to have their own formats. It is these small formats that are like sets of gears naturally formed by the heavens. They are joined together to form the large format of heaven and earth. Luo Nan had already entered the state of mind. He continued speaking. From the perspective of formatting theory, the heaven and earth format is vast and boundless. It is rich in layers and changes. It is like a production line assembled from complex machines. Tens of thousands of gears operate in sequence, transmitting power layer by layer. Here we go again. Zhang Yingying could not help but groan. The scene of her talking to herself was simply a replica of that night at Frost River reality. Unfriendly thoughts and concepts assaulted her face. She never expected that Luo Nan would purposely oppose Zhang Yingying. While Zhang Yingying was grumbling on the other side, Luo Nan suddenly came out from his extreme self-centered state. He sought interaction and posed a question to the two. The heaven and earth formats production line won't stop working. Under such circumstances, to insert a self-made gear into the production line and make it seamless, how do I do it? The answer is coupling. Luo Nan was like a child striving to show off. He impatiently announced the answer. A smile blossomed on his bloody, tear-stained face. It was extraordinarily bright and splendid. Xue Lei was stupefied once more. He didn't quite understand Luo Nan's words, but he had never seen Luo Nan have such a bright and clear appearance ever since they became acquainted. Indeed, Luo Nan was extremely delighted. The deeper his observations of gear went, the more he fell head over heels for the mysteries within. This gear building was embedded within the heaven and earth format. Rumbling production lines were added to the mix. They were precise and orderly, seamless, and there wasn't the slightest hint of artificiality. It was as if this was the natural quality of the world. If Luo Nan hadn't grasped the rhythm of heaven and earth breathing, how could this have happened? From this, Luo Nan was able to confirm an earlier guess. His mother's coupling design was closely related to formatting theory. It was like a kind of applied explanation. It demonstrated to the world how to apply formatting theory to the plane of reality. And this tangible achievement belonged to his mother. Formatting theory? Gear? Xue Lei finally found the key words in Luo Nan's words. He tried to follow the direction of Luo Nan's gaze. He gazed into the distance with his eyesight under the dusky sky. He was able to make out the rough outlines of the distant forest and the landmark building, but that was it. Nanster, you can see gear from here? Shui Lei was skeptical of the level of Luo Nan's eyesight, but he was more worried. The burden of exhausting his eyesight in Luo Nan's current state was far too heavy. I can see it. It's so beautiful. Luo Nan's voice was fleeting, just like the marvelous scene before his eyes. It was impossible to touch upon the hidden mysteries of gear with the naked eye or mental sensing clairvoyance. Only the two modes of vision and mental sensing could realize information coupling and cross-positioning. Only then could one touch upon the truth behind the surface. One could see the formless law and order, silently transforming and nurturing in the void of heaven and earth. Luo Nan greedily watched all of this. He couldn't see enough no matter what. Shui Lei stomped his feet anxiously to the side. He was unable to understand the world within Luo Nan's eyes, but he was still able to grasp a bit of the energy emanating from Luo Nan's body. From what he understood, the energy of Luo Nan's eye's orifice was far too vigorous. It was like a wildly growing plant. It was a seedling before, but it had become a towering tree in the blink of an eye. Where did this terrifying driving force come from? Was the aftereffect enough? Could the structural strength of the skeleton-shaped orifice hold up? A single mishap and he would be crippled. Oh right, find the gym master. The first person Shui Lei thought of when his life was at stake was still the gym master. But right when he planned to exit the three-way communications and make a call to find the gym master, Luo Nan suddenly took a deep breath. His arm was pressed against the glass of the protective fence. His head was facing down, and his eyelids drooped. He took the initiative to stop his incomprehensible gaze into the distance. He appeared extremely tired. Shui Lei rushed over. "Nanster, are you okay? Why don't we take a break first?" Luo Nan didn't open his eyes. He just laughed. "I might be in a bit of a situation. A kind of order is like a gear. Two kinds of orders are coupled, and the gears bite together. If there's no precise design to connect them, and the difference in volume between the two is too large, then it will be very troublesome." Shui Lei was stupefied. Zhang Yinging spoke hatefully from the other side. "Don't worry about him. He's incurable." Luo Nan understood the different forms of concern and worry from his friends, but it was hard for him to continue explaining the situation with his body. This was because it involved his deep secrets. The coupling relationship formed between the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and mental senses was essentially the contact between Luo Nan's body cultivation and the sizable formatting theory system. They could couple, but friction and collisions were unavoidable. 10 days of cultivation and 60 electric shocks to the heart lantern had clearly revealed the dangerous factors involved. Moreover, the situation had changed once again, and the trend was not good. It was like the thunderclouds high in the sky. Charged particles interweaved. Something was bound to happen. A powerful light suddenly flashed, and the external neuron was like a demon dragon that roared through the wind and thunder. It appeared in the palace of Luo Nan's brain, shaking off a body of electricity to bombard the heart lantern. The 61st time was stronger than any other time. This was a direct collision between the external neuron and the structure of the eye's orifice. Luo Nan had a premonition in his mind, but the intensity of this collision exceeded his expectations. His body suddenly tightened, and his mind became dizzy. He seemed to hear the sound of his eyeballs shattering in his daze. The impact his brain nerves received was transmitted to every part of his body through his tightly interwoven nervous system. His muscles, bones, blood, and fascia all twitched reflexively. Luo Nan curled up his body and crouched down. He reached out his hand to cover his eyes, and tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. His eyeballs heated up, and his eyelids twitched wildly. It was extremely uncomfortable. Shui Lei's cry of alarm and Zhang Yingying's panicked shouts entered his ears. The two were in chaos. Luo Nan's thoughts became more and more clear amidst the pain. He could even feel a slight change in the touch of his hand covering his eyes. It wasn't blood mixed with tears. Instead, it was more viscous. The intense and powerful pressure caused greater damage to his body. "This is nothing. I know what's going on." Luo Nan calmly comforted himself. The results were very good. There was probably nothing that could shake his heart more than the discovery of the mysteries of gear in a short amount of time. Even though his eyes couldn't see, he still accurately grabbed Shui Lei's outstretched arm and whispered, "I'm fine. Someone's coming from behind." The sound of water surged from the direction of the heavenly ocean lake just as Luo Nan finished speaking. It was mixed with a muffled explosion. An enormous devil ray soared into the sky and landed heavily, raising large waves in the pool. At the same time, a figure leaped up gracefully, jumping onto the frame structure propped up above the side of the pool. The figure wore a black diving suit, revealing the strong and sturdy lines of a human body. His face wore enormous diving goggles, and he had no intention of taking them off. This was one of the members of the investigation team sent by headquarters, Puppeteer. Shui Lei turned around, protecting Luo Nan behind him. His eyes were vigilant. Puppeteer didn't express anything. He relied on his good position to look down from above. His eyes behind the diving goggles continued to size up the two people at the edge of the viewing platform. Especially Luo Nan. Puppeteer was very interested in Luo Nan's painful crouching state. Only a few seconds passed, and two elevators arrived not far from the edge of the heavenly ocean lake. The first to come out was Black Beetle. His sunglasses were thrown away, but his face was still a bit green. His cold and sinister gaze pierced over. He ignored Shui Lei, only landing on Luo Nan's arched back. Shui Lei wasn't the least bit polite to this person. He glared fiercely at Luo Nan, but he was still a bit nervous in his heart. Luo Nan's condition was terrible to the extreme. Not only did Black Beetle have to split his attention to protect Luo Nan, but he also had to defend against attacks from two sides at the same time. Oh right, there was still an elevator. Could it be the enemy's backup? The metal door of the other elevator opened just as Shui Lei was having a headache. Shui Lei was stupefied for a moment, but he managed to correct the direction of his understanding with great difficulty. Senior Sister Tian? The person who walked out of the elevator was none other than Tian Si. This dainty and beautiful senior sister had a deathly pale complexion. Her steps were stiff, and her upper body was in a strange posture. She crossed her hands and clutched her neck. Her strength was quite heavy, and her fingers had already sunk deep into her delicate skin. The enormous pressure caused her mouth to open slightly and her vermilion lips to tremble. This scene was bizarre and absurd. Due to the existence of self-protection mechanisms, it was impossible for normal people to use this sort of method to strangle themselves to death. However, this was not necessarily the case in a situation where one was under the control of extraordinary power. Shui Lei gnashed his teeth as he watched. "You bunch of people. You guys are members of the society." No one paid attention to him. Puppeteer spoke from above the pool, but he was pointing at Tian Si. His tone was gentle and without any distinguishing features. It was as if he was chatting normally. "We've met again after a short separation, beautiful. Do you want to say something?" Tian Si's lips trembled. Shui Lei's eyes and ears were sharp, but he could still hear her teeth chattering. She could be considered strong if she didn't have a mental breakdown after such a bizarre and savage method fell on her body. With great difficulty, Tian Si managed to squeeze out a few trembling words from her throat. "He'd been taking the stairs all this time." Everyone on the viewing platform was stupefied. Only Luo Nan, who had fallen to one knee amidst the pain, laughed in spite of himself, though his laughter was a bit shaky. He didn't turn his head. He just raised an arm. "It's my fault." Chapter 305. On the entire viewing platform, only Luo Nan was able to understand the feeling of grievance in Tian Si's words. She really did follow Luo Nan's instructions. She walked down the stairs of the fire escape. No matter how tired she was, she didn't ask for help from the elevator. She stayed far away from the central crystal pillar, but she was still unable to escape Puppeteer's demonic claws. She was controlled and taken hostage. Of course, the grievance was secondary. Tian Si felt more fear. She was an intelligent person. She guessed that the current momentum of victory and defeat between the two sides from the choices made by Puppeteer and Black Beetle should have been reversed. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in her being a hostage. Her value to the kidnappers was to threaten Luo Nan. But what value did she have to Luo Nan? Why would he give up the great situation of reversing the hopeless situation and take the risk to rescue her? This situation nearly made Tian-Si fall into despair. However, she could only place her hopes on Luo Nan. She was all the more afraid that Luo Nan would turn a blind eye because of the inconvenience. So her expression of grievance came from her heart, but it was more or less a deliberate expression. She only hoped that she could arouse a bit of Luo Nan's understanding and sympathy so that she could redeem a bit more of a chance at survival. Luo Nan's raised arm gave Tian-Si a bit of comfort. However, her reaction couldn't satisfy others. Puppeteer sighed in the air above Heavenly Ocean Lake. He slid his body to the middle of the pool's edge along the frame structure above the pool. He crooked his finger at Tian-Si. Tian-Si's feet involuntarily leaned towards the swimming pool. When she got closer, her left thumb pressed against her lower jaw. She violently turned her face around and lifted it up slightly, forcing her to look up at the master who currently controlled her life. Let's work together. Puppeteer crouched down. He even lowered a hand to indicate to Tian-Si. His diving goggles covered half of his face. His mouth cracked open, revealing his snow-white teeth in a smile. The shape of Puppeteer's face wasn't bad. He had the flavor of a sunny man, but Tian-Si was completely drowned in fear under this smile. She could only watch helplessly. She was like a marionette. Her entire body was under the control of someone else. She extended a hand upward, connecting it with Puppeteer's palm. Then she was pulled up. Under the rough movements, she felt that her arm was about to be dislocated. She couldn't help but let out a painful groan, but the sound was quickly squeezed back. Puppeteer used his own hand in place of Tian-Si's. He forcefully grabbed her neck and carefully sized her up face to face. He was very satisfied with Tian-Si's complexion, which had turned from deathly pale to flushed from fear and suffocation. He took a deep breath in her hair and savored the delicate fragrance of her hair. At the same time, he laughed. Beauty, whether you're willing or not, we're one. Tian-Si was really about to suffocate. Right now, she had regained some control over her body, but she could only helplessly move Puppeteer's steel-like arm. She struggled with her legs. Apart from that, she couldn't do anything else. Puppeteer lifted Tian-Si's slender neck. His footsteps were light as he returned to his original position. During this process, Tian-Si struggled with her hands and feet at first, but she quickly ran out of strength. Her body went limp, and her eyes were filled with despair. At this time, Puppeteer's gaze had already turned to Luo Nan. Even though Luo Nan was still half-squatting at the edge of the viewing platform, not even turning his body around, Puppeteer's eyes behind his diving goggles were firmly fixed on Luo Nan. He wouldn't relax in the slightest. As for Black Beetle, he stood in front of Heavenly Ocean Lake with a cold expression. He blocked the only path to rescue Tian-Si. Even so, Puppeteer still felt that it wasn't too safe. He continued, I must admit that we underestimated your abilities, Mr. Luo Nan. We underestimated your transcendent mental attack. Our plans were ruined. So, we learned our lesson and decided to calmly chat and discuss things. We'll solve the problem. For the sake of ensuring this, I specifically made a safety wire. Thank you for your cooperation, Beauty. Right now, I have a bit of a connection with her on the mental plane. Any experience I receive will be fairly shared with her. In terms of endurance, I have some self-confidence that I can surpass this delicate beauty. An attack that's enough to defeat me has a high chance of defeating the other first. So, right now, I can only hope that the relationship between the two of you is sufficiently close. Having said this, Puppeteer turned to look at Tian-Si. Speaking of which, Beauty, have you two slept together yet? That's better if you haven't. Perhaps Mr. Luo Nan will feel that it's a pity. Puppeteer obviously hoped to receive a response from Luo Nan after his excellent performance, but Shuelei only sent him a gaze of loathing. The main character, Luo Nan, still maintained his original posture. He had even retracted his apologetic arm. It was unknown whether it was due to the effects of his injuries, or whether it was due to his disdain for his defeated subordinate. Puppeteer sighed. He had no choice but to urge Luo Nan, Mr. Luo Nan, it's best if we don't waste any more time. Even if the police are idiots, They should come back to their senses by now. Everyone should resolve this as soon as possible and go home. That would be excellent. Luo Nan still didn't respond. TSK. Are all youngsters this cold these days? Then allow me to warm things up first. I'll play a little trick with my temporary beauty partner. A smile returned to Puppeteer's face. He raised his arm horizontally, placing Tian-Si above the water's surface. After breaking through the tempered glass at the bottom of the pool, the heavenly ocean lake will probably be the deepest swimming pool in the world. It's 800 meters deep. I have a feeling that the beauty partner next to me has pretty good swimming skills. She's enough to deal with those cute little kids, middle-aged friends, and older friends. Why don't we give it a try first? Tian-Si had already given up on struggling, but as Puppeteer's words entered her ears, the strength in his hand mercilessly increased. He forcefully squeezed out what little potential she had, forcing her to struggle with her hands and feet. She was unable to speak, and her originally beautiful pupils rolled upwards. Excellent. Beautiful, you have quite the camera feel. Puppeteer laughed even more happily. His hand casually swayed a few times, causing Tian-Si to struggle even more painfully. Let us officially begin. The first act of the hero saving the beauty, action. The water of the heavenly ocean lake splashed as soon as Puppeteer's words fell. A terrifying shadow broke through the water's surface, leaping 6 to 7 meters into the air. It brushed past the soles of Tian-Si's feet, and its long tail lashed out. It took the opportunity to slice off one of Tian-Si's high heels, and the other fell down amidst her struggle. My other partner is quite protective of the fairer sex. However, I'll tell it that the next step is your delicate little feet. Do you want them to be symmetrical? The ice-cold water vapor and the scorching killing intent assaulted her at the same time. Tian-Si could no longer hold herself back, and tears poured down her face. She cried noiselessly just like that, and the barrier of her willpower completely collapsed. At the edge of the viewing platform, Luo Nan's eyes were still closed, but his eyelids trembled twice. He exerted strength with great difficulty to support himself against the protective glass. He slowly stood up, turned around, and faced the two fiends head-on, but he still didn't open his mouth. Black Beetle turned his head and locked gazes with Puppeteer when he saw Luo Nan's situation. Both of them thought of the word backlash in their minds. Black Beetle then chuckled, "You're also trash as a director. Are we still in the era of silent films? You're just doing voiceovers. Where's the dubbing?" Puppeteer didn't mind. He gave a light praise, "Good idea." Puppeteer loosened his grip a bit as soon as he finished speaking, allowing Tian-Si's sobs to pass through her airway with great difficulty. They squeezed out strands by strands. Tian-Si's oppressive breath of despair pierced through the sound of the heavenly ocean lake's water. It entered Shui Lei's ears intermittently, causing his teeth to creak. However, Zhang Yingying had given him orders time and time again that he absolutely could not act impulsively. This was to prevent Black Beetle and Puppeteer from taking advantage of a loophole. Shui Lei had no other choice but to grit his teeth. Luo Nan, on the other hand, maintained a calm expression even though his eyes were closed and blood was flowing. He could even be said to be callous. The situation was still deadlocked. Puppeteer had a big headache when faced with this master who wouldn't be moved by force or persuasion. In the end, time stood on the opposing side in Xia City. Puppeteer could only confront Luo Nan while using his own channels to contact him and ask for advice. A few seconds later, he snapped his fingers. "How about this? Let's change methods. Beauty, don't cry. Let me ask you something. This callous boy in front of us, were you on a date just now? Now he's crying his eyes blind. Can you tell me?" Tian-Si's willpower had collapsed. She thought she was dead. How could she respond? Puppeteer shook his head. "How about this? For the sake of fairness, I'll tell you a secret first. Our other partner." As he spoke, the mutant devil ray broke through the surface of the water once more. It leaped into the air, but it didn't fall according to the laws of physics. Instead, it resisted gravity and floated beneath the dome, circling around Tian-Si's body. "Our partner can actually fly." This way, he can use his large mouth to meticulously grind away the skin and flesh of your little foot bit by bit. He can slowly chomp down. It's better for digestion. So, let's work together a bit more? As he spoke, the Devil Ray's long tail of electricity had already wrapped around Tianxi's calf. It hooked onto her stockings a bit, coiled up, and gradually tightened. Tianxi felt the sensation of a snake coiling around her calf. There was even the numbing power of electricity. Her entire body trembled, and the gurgling sound of her throat mixed with her hoarse sobs. She just wanted to faint. But under Puppeteer's control, this became an extravagant hope. Pay attention to the time, Puppeteer reminded her one last time. Tianxi's thoughts were in complete chaos. Fear ruled over everything. It was like the claws of a demon probing into her brain and rummaging. Whatever was inside, it would be pulled out. Because of Gear. Gear is Senior Sister Qingwen's masterpiece. You can see it here. Gear? That's the society building we went to first, right? Puppeteer tilted his head and continued to ask, Senior Sister Qingwen? Who's that? It's junior brother Luo Nan's mother. I have a bit of an impression, but it doesn't seem to be of much use. Puppeteer spoke, but he glanced in Luo Nan's direction from the corner of his eye. Black Beetle stared in that direction with fixed eyes. He suddenly thought of something and contacted someone through his wristband. Hello, you guys are still in Gear, right? Oh right, it's that society building. Hurry up and prove it. Idiot, isn't it easy to break something, set it on fire, or something? As he spoke, he raised his arm horizontally and turned on the speaker function. He turned the volume to the maximum. A short second later, a loud crashing sound accompanied by crashing noises could be heard. There was no sign of it stopping. Chapter 306. Black Beetle knew that Luo Nan's current injuries were mostly due to the backlash of the secret technique. It had little to do with their methods. But this didn't affect Black Beetle's good mood. He climbed back onto the viewing platform, and his taut face relaxed for the first time. He hissed and laughed at his wristband. Snake tongue. Beautiful snake tongue. I love you to death. Keep going. Keep going. Smash something that looks more memorable. A hoarse male voice came through the wristband's external speaker. Don't try to get close to Snake Tongue if you don't have anything to do. I was the one who did it. Next, destroy the building and smash the outer wall. How about it? Tank, I love you too. Black Beetle was overly excited. His mouth was extremely greasy, and he smacked Luo Nan with the side of his face. He didn't conceal his delight in the slightest. Oh, I'm sorry. I know this move is a bit childish, but it's effective. Especially when I look at your face. This is the expression I want. Luo Nan didn't say anything, but Xue Lei couldn't hold back from cursing. You lowly scum. If you have the guts, let's fight face to face. I'll smash your head flat with 3 punches. Black Beetle's sinister gaze swiveled over. He grinned, revealing his deep red tongue and white teeth. A deep darkness seeped through. That's quite unfortunate. I'm not interested right now. Right now, I just feel that it's a pity. Soon, Black Beetle's gaze switched, and it pierced Luo Nan's face like a poisonous dart. It's a pity that the Hexa-ear malfunctioned today. Otherwise, we could do a live broadcast and see Tank's ability to demolish houses. Oh, I forgot. The wristband works too. Cloud City Water Village's network is quite stable. Luo Nan let out a light breath. He reached out to press down on Xue Lei, who was about to explode. He leaned back against the protective glass and spoke hoarsely, "Stop messing around. What do you guys want to know?" Oh, you finally know how to respond. Black Beetle saw Luo Nan admit defeat. How could he not know that success was at hand? He felt a cool and refreshing air pour down from the top of his head. He felt refreshed to the core. But even so, his miserable experience on the 141st floor was like a volcano crater. It caused a disturbance in his heart. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Black Beetle didn't make a sound. He just slowly smoothed out the tie in his hand and put it back on his neck. He flipped it left and right, gesturing it back and forth. During this time, the muffled sound of someone smashing the wall could be heard from the loudspeaker on the wristband. Even though Luonan was holding him down, Shui Lei was still hopping mad. "You son of a bitch! You came here specifically to destroy people." Black Beetle laughed involuntarily. "Don't be anxious. This is just the beginning. If I don't smash it for an hour or two, I won't be able to see any effect." Ugh. Before he even finished speaking, Black Beetle's mouth suddenly couldn't close. The rest of his words were stuck in his throat. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't close them. During this process, his face turned red, green, and purple. It was as if an invisible hand of a demon had covered his mouth and nose, isolating him from the outside world. A feeling of suffocation engulfed his entire body. After that, he felt the pain of needles piercing into his brain. His vision went black and red again, and his nerves went haywire. His entire body was stiff and trembling. Luonan's voice was like a cool breeze that brushed past her ear. "You actually didn't make a safety wire? How unfortunate." Black Beetle struggled in pain. His eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets. He strove to mobilize his extraordinary power, but for some reason, the mental attack he suffered this time was 10 times more violent than last time. The aftermath of the attack didn't fade. He exerted force with great difficulty, but all he could do was touch his gaudy tie. He grabbed it with force, finding it hard to make any further movements. Puppeteer exploded with a shout from above Heavenly Ocean Lake. "Mr. Luonan, everyone, don't act excessively. We can talk this out." Puppeteer saw Luonan turn his head to look at him just as he shouted. Puppeteer's blood-red eyes made contact with Luonan's heart go slightly cold. Luonan whispered, "What do you mean by excessively?" "Mirror him." Puppeteer adjusted his mood and forced a smile. "There's no need for us to be so intense. This is just a routine investigation. Look, I haven't harmed a single hair on this beauty from beginning to end. I was just playing a joke. I was just trying to scare her, right? Then I smashed my mother's masterpiece." "That's..." Luonan lowered his head slightly. His body movements were full of exhaustion. It was as if he was organizing his words. "Black Beetle doesn't have the attitude to communicate with me normally. Actually, even now, I don't know what you guys want to do. There's only fighting and killing, humiliation, and damage." Puppeteer cursed in his mind. He cursed Luonan, and he cursed Black Beetle. Black Beetle had seen the series of conflicts from start to finish. Luonan's claim that he didn't know was certainly nonsense. However, it was an indisputable fact that Black Beetle prioritized revenge over obtaining information. In fact, Puppeteer himself rather admired Black Beetle's behavior. On this point, the two of them had a common language. When all was said and done, they didn't take Luonan seriously in the beginning. They just wanted to deal with a half-crippled, half-grown child once they finished their defenses. Black Beetle's actions were excessively unbridled. Evil karma begets evil karma. In the end, Black Beetle had to swallow the karma. Puppeteer was stronger than Black Beetle in one aspect. He was more nimble. Puppeteer knew that he needed to change his methods. He discussed things with the people behind him, and he revealed a sunny smile. "Mr. Luonan, we are both members of the society. I believe that we can carry out a calm and peaceful exchange. I've already told them to stop over at Gear. If the exchange goes smoothly, not only will they withdraw at first notice, but they will also send the best engineering team to restore all the damage done. They will also pay $1 million in compensation. Are you satisfied with this sincerity?" Luonan didn't respond, but he didn't refuse. Puppeteer felt that the change in trajectory was a success. His smile grew more and more brilliant. "Mr. Luonan, both sides are expressing sincerity. Look at Black Beetle." The corner of Luonan's lips twitched. "Is he affecting our exchange?" Puppeteer was a bit startled, but the smile on his face remained the same. "No, he's not affected." Po. It was true that Black Beetle's entire body was stiff, but his mind was still clear. His eyes and ears were still useful. Puppeteer's words all fell into his ears. This nearly caused his heart to explode. He exerted all the strength in his body to twist his body, but he lost his sense of balance under the mental attack. He didn't twist his body. Instead, he fell down, his face smashing heavily into the ground. Since Puppeteer had made up his mind, he didn't even spare a glance in that direction. He just muttered to himself, wondering if the safety wire in his hand was truly effective. Luo Nen spoke at this time. "Speak. What do you guys want to know?" Puppeteer composed himself and calculated the time. He smiled and tossed out a series of words. On the night of October 7th, the Society's Xia City branch clashed with the Order of Justice at Frost River Reality on Fudong Main Street in the city center. Branch President Ouyang Chen intervened in the later stages of the conflict. He erected the so-called logic world. From that point on, many things are unclear. This is disadvantageous to headquarters in restoring the truth of the matter and upholding justice for everyone. Luo Nen also laughed. "You guys should go ask President Ouyang. 1 for personal gain, 2 for public gain. One-sided testimonies are very hard to accept. We learned through special channels that Mr. Luo Nan, by chance, entered the logic world through an out-of-body state. You are an extremely important witness. So we want to ask, what special channels?" Luo Nan was very curious. Puppeteer's face finally turned cold. "Mr. Luo Nan, no matter how you say it, this is an investigation by headquarters. I hope that everyone can correct their attitudes. Don't create any side issues and don't want to see consequences to appear." Luo Nen nodded. He no longer interrupted. Puppeteer stared at Luo Nan's face and spoke in a deep voice. "We want to know what you saw in the logic world. Narrow down the scope a bit. What did Ouyang Chen do? What did An Wang of the Order of Justice do? Why did he do this? Then he disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? There are many things that I don't know. Tell us everything you know. This will take a long time." "Mr. Luo Nan." Puppeteer took a deep breath. His fingers exerted more pressure on Tianxi's slender neck, using her painful struggle to express his mood. "Since we all know that this will take a long time, why not be a bit more nimble?" Actually, Xue Lei was itching to give it a try at this time, but he was stopped once more. Luo Nan leaned against the protective glass and muttered to himself for a moment. He said, "If you want to know An Wang's actions back then, you must understand what the logic world created by President Ouyang is." Puppeteer raised his voice. "Mr. Luo, our time is precious." Before Puppeteer's voice could fall, an order came from behind. "Let him continue. This information is very valuable." Puppeteer's face twitched, and he instantly switched to a smile. "So, please be concise and comprehensive." Luo Nan ignored the change in Puppeteer's expression. He just minded his own business and spoke several seconds later. "If you view the mental plane as countless layers of fluttering cloth." Puppeteer cursed inwardly, F***CK. He had no choice but to interrupt Luo Nan once more. "The world recognizes that the mental plane is divided into 3 zones, 1 region and 1 domain. Where did your countless layers come from?" Luo Nan did not speak. He raised his eyelids, and his blood-red eyes faced Puppeteer. Perhaps he could not see clearly, but he maintained this posture until Puppeteer felt that he was an incurable idiot. Puppeteer's eyelids twitched. "Mr. Luo?" Luo Nan had kept his eyes open for too long. His eyes burned with pain, so he simply closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. 5 or 6 seconds passed before he said, "Through the formatting theory created by my grandfather, I observe the mental world." "It's just like that. Do you need me to explain what formatting theory is?" The relationship between the self, society, and heaven and earth format should be relatively easy for ability users to understand. I remember that President Ouyang did some elaborations on self-logic and secular logic. You guys aren't so stubborn that you don't know anything about this, right? 4 or 5 new concepts popped up one after another, causing Puppeteer to be a bit dazed. Luckily, he quickly received instructions from the rear. He corrected the direction of the topic. "We can postpone the theory lesson. Right now, you can directly describe it. First, what do you know about the logic world? Second, what is the result of An Wang being in the logic world? Then I won't use a curtain to describe it." Luo Nan raised his head slightly and adopted a posture of reminiscence. "The logic world. Now that I think about it, it's probably a part of the heaven and earth format that was forcefully dismantled and pieced together into a temporary production line. In terms of composition, it is a part of the heaven and earth format. In terms of rules, the self format is the yardstick. The heaven and earth format is temporarily included in the scope of the self format, using a small gear to drive a large gear. The coupling structure here is truly exquisite. Format your sister. Gear your mother. Puppeteer felt that his ability to understand had been insulted. He wanted to immediately snap Tianxi's neck, but Luo Nan's voice drifted over just as this thought passed through his mind. Chapter 307. The mutant devil ray circled back and forth in the heavenly ocean lake. Its developed wing-like pectoral fins stirred up wave after wave in the lake. It looked a bit impatient, just like Puppeteer's current mood. The smile on his face was still there, but most of his muscles were stiff. At this time, a low and cold voice entered his ears from behind, but he did not know where it came from. Could it be that you really hope to dig out something right now and obtain a great merit? There really is a problem with your comprehension ability. Puppeteer's face turned hot, and he wanted to curse in his heart. But just as he thought this, the voice from behind seemed to see through his internal organs. Instead of cursing silently, it's better to think of a way to continue attracting the opponent's attention. Move your mouth. Puppeteer secretly clenched his teeth, but he had just been reprimanded. There was still support behind it, so his heart was able to twist a bit. He slightly moved the muscles on his face and did his best to reply calmly. Mr. Luo Nan can continue. As he spoke, Puppeteer confirmed the time once more. He also confirmed that the recording was on. He made up his mind. No matter what Luo Nan said, he would just let Luo Nan speak. He would just ignore it and go back to analyze it in detail. Formatting theory, right? What grandfather and grandmother? When I get back, I'll make you reveal the color of your entire family's underwear. Luo Nan seemed to truly believe Puppeteer's words. His eyes remained closed and he spoke expressionlessly, then I'll continue speaking. I just finished talking about the logic world. Next, I can describe In Weng's situation. Finish my ass. Puppeteer's gaze looked down behind the enormous diving goggles. He did his utmost to filter out all information related to Luo Nan, but even so, Luo Nan's voice still penetrated through. It was simply like the whispers of a devil, stirring up Puppeteer's emotions layer by layer. I'm not clear on what In Weng is doing. I can only say what I observe and understand. You must know that the levels of the heaven and earth format are extremely rich. The interference between the material plane and the mental plane can form countless kinds of order frames. Oh, you definitely don't understand this part. Fuck. The devil ray echoed Puppeteer's emotions. Within the heavenly ocean lake, the devil ray forcefully flapped its pectoral fins and wings once more, creating a rumbling explosion. Water sprayed everywhere, drenching most of Tianxi's skirt and stockings. However, she was already completely unresponsive. Puppeteer wanted to kill. Right now, he was incomparably convinced that Luo Nan had done this on purpose. That kid had seized on the fact that Luo Nan didn't understand, to torment and ridicule him back and forth. All right, did Luo Nan really think that Luo Nan was a Buddha who wouldn't get angry or angry? Luo Nan stopped talking, but he didn't even open his eyes. He calmly waited for the noise created by the devil ray to pass. You want to blow the fuse? Maybe the kid was waiting for you to do that. At that time, my useless protection spell won't be able to protect you. Luo Nan didn't open his mouth, but the rear darkly warned Puppeteer. In the end, Puppeteer concluded with an ice-cold order. Don't let me be distracted by you again. After being reprimanded again, even Puppeteer's anger turned into ashes. He suddenly came to a realization. What was Luo Nan's goal in this round of taunting and stabbing? If what the rear said was really to provoke him to cut off the safety wire himself, then their intentions were really deep. On the surface, Puppeteer had said that he and Tianxi shared mental attacks, but Luo Nan could presumably see that the connection between the two was actually unequal after these few rounds. Tianxi was being tormented to the point of hovering between life and death, while Puppeteer was quite relaxed. In reality, Even if Luo Nan's mental attack came, Puppeteer had the confidence to block the first wave. He relied on Tianxi in his hands. She was a good conductor. She was enough to minimize the damage to himself. And if he made a mistake and cut off his own path of retreat, what would happen to him? Just look at Black Beetle in front of him. He was a living example. Many complex thoughts flashed through Puppeteer's mind, but a thin layer of cold sweat covered his back. He immediately loosened his fingers and even sent a bit of vital energy into Tianxi to avoid giving her more pressure. He also helped her smooth out her blood and energy. He was afraid that his emotions would be too extreme and he would really strangle the safety wire on the spot, pushing the situation into an unsalvageable situation. He still had to explain to Luo Nan, sorry. Mutants aren't easy to control. I didn't interrupt your train of thought, did I? Luo Nan was silent for a moment. His voice became a bit deeper. I coined the term order frame. It's normal that you don't understand it. So ask yourself, do you need further explanation? Puppeteer stared at Luo Nan's face. The more he looked, the more he felt that he had dodged a calamity. Otherwise, what would he explain? Would he return the favor with a plum? He was just trying to cover it up. Youngsters these days had ruthless hearts. Puppeteer's mind relaxed and tightened. From the looks of it, Luo Nan still harbored thoughts of direct conflict with them. Perhaps the society's reinforcements were about to arrive. Puppeteer needed to be a bit more careful and make more preparations. Speaking of which, the rear wasn't ready yet? In any case, Puppeteer adjusted his mentality. He accepted his fate. He wouldn't get pregnant just by listening to it. What was there to be afraid of? He put on his signature sunny smile. Of course, it's best if you can explain. I want it. Why wouldn't I want it? Luo Nan felt extremely exhausted after going through so many things. He let out a breath and gasped for a bit before continuing, I came up with this term. The source was the inspiration provided by Child. Child. Puppeteer adjusted his mentality. His utilitarian heart gradually faded, and his mind became much more nimble. He raised an eyebrow upon hearing Luo Nan's words. The ears of truth? Luo Nan didn't respond to this topic. He followed the prescribed order and continued to speak. Child once said that observation is order. According to my understanding, it refers to using one's own logic to comb through the myriad things of the world that one observes, establishing laws of order that are easy for one to understand and utilize. And our existence itself is the product of a certain natural order. Here, the order of the subjective and the objective, the order of the mental and the material, interferes. It is like two gears biting together. If the coupling structure is relatively stable and the operation is effective, then it is a gear set with relatively independent functions. It is an order frame. An order frame can be large or small. Speaking small, it can be our own cultivation method, and it can even be subdivided. Speaking large, the myriad things of the world can be included within it. Connections can also occur between the various order frames. The eyes behind the diving goggles blinked. Perhaps it was because his mind had calmed down, or perhaps it was because he had a clear reference, but Puppeteer suddenly felt that Luo Nan's words were quite reasonable if he cast aside the descriptions of gears and formats and used terms that were easier for Puppeteer to understand. The order frame was like the self-logic of an ability user. Oh, this was Ouyang Chen's concept. Puppeteer preferred the more fanciful term of domain. On the side of headquarters, there were powerful people who proposed that the material world should be regularized. They wanted to use the perspective of pure supernatural power to reinterpret the entire universe. At the very least, they needed to leave a place for the mental plane. Of course, the 50 years of rapid development of the inner world was far too immature when compared to the profound and complex physical system that humanity had developed over 1,000 years. This argument could only be used as a form of motion. It could only be listened to for the time being. Were kids these days considering such complex issues? Or was formatting theory really that valuable? He would have to dig deeper when he got back. They're really chatting? Zhang Yingying was dizzy from listening through the three-way communications. She could not help but shout, "Don't get carried away. This fellow puppeteer is very sinister." Hey, I think I heard someone say snake tongue just now. It's snake tongue, right? Luo Nan acted as if he did not hear her. He continued to talk loudly. It was Xue Lei who confirmed in a low voice, it's snake tongue without a doubt. There's also a tank. He's over at Gear right now. He's threatening Nanster. That sinister woman has quite the reputation. She's a true curse mage with an inheritance. Holy crap. I just checked. She's not in the investigation team at all. She snuck over. Zhang Yingying slapped the steering wheel again. Right now, the investigation team's leader and deputy leader are both under control. But the other side may not know about this variable, snake tongue. We must notify the people coming over to provide support. Otherwise, we'll just be sending ourselves to our deaths. Xue Lei's heart tightened a bit. Is this person very powerful? She's been an architect-level character for a long time, but she's a bit like Nanster. Her body isn't too good, so she lives in seclusion and rarely shows herself. But she specializes in curses, and she also understands torture and assassination. She's extremely sinister. When it comes to harming people, she can leave her soul body and travel 1,000 kilometers in a single night to another city. Oh my god. Zhang Ying stopped slapping the steering wheel and instead slapped her thigh. Be careful of this person. You must be careful. You guys are talking a bunch of nonsense over there, but if she's in an out-of-body state, she can go from Gear to Ocean Sky Cloud City in a single thought. Xue Lei's scalp went numb when he heard this. He immediately opened his mouth to warn Luo Nan, Nanster. The words just left his mouth when Luo Nan's back borrowed a bit of strength from the protective glass. He stood up straight and spoke softly, you might not be able to understand it if you just say it with your mouth. This way, I can do a demonstration. Puppeteer keenly sensed the minute changes on Luo Nan's side, especially Xue Lei. It was clear that Xue Lei was communicating with someone and knew some information. Puppeteer's heart tightened a bit, and his body quickly entered a battle-ready state. The smile on his face didn't change. Demonstration? I think what you said just now was quite good. I already understand the concept of the order frame. It's actually a domain, a small universe, a law of heaven and earth. Am I right? Wrong. Luo Nan responded in a straightforward and efficient manner. The core I just spoke of isn't actually in the order frame. Instead, it lies in coupling. The former has a myriad of names, but its source lies in the myriad of connections between each other. My mother classified these connections as coupling. I think it's quite appropriate. In the end, Puppeteer's blood-red eyes opened into a slit. Deep darkness and stillness were mixed within the blood-red color. His gaze fell upon the fallen figure in front of the heavenly ocean lake. The one who's playing dead is a very typical example. Many black beetles who had not moved at all felt their bodies jolt. Their scalps went numb. They felt Xue Lei, who was in front of them, and Puppeteer, who was behind them. Their gazes were like knives as they sliced over. Chapter 308. Black Beetle really was playing dead. Though Luo Nan's second mental attack was much stronger than the first, there was still an end to it. After enduring the most painful period, Black Beetle regained his soul and regained his ability to move. However, Black Beetle could no longer find his position in the current situation. He saw it clearly. This group of people from headquarters were all unreliable, cold-blooded people. After he made a move against Luo Nan, he severed his friendship with the Xia City branch. He did a pirate-style jump and finally smashed into the sea. Right now, Black Beetle hated Luo Nan to the core. He hated Puppeteer to the core, and his teeth itched. Presumably, both sides felt the same way about him. Black Beetle didn't know how to deal with this awkward situation. He could only lie on the ground and play dead. He thought about how to adapt to the situation. It would be best if the sandpiper and the clam could fight and the fisherman could profit from it. But if not, he would retreat unscathed. Who would have thought that Luo Nan would talk about those inexplicable concepts right when the two sides were about to completely forget about him? Then Luo Nan picked him up in passing. What happened next? The demonstration caused a chill to run down Black Beetle's back. Luo Nan didn't have any good intentions. Should Black Beetle continue to play dead? Or should he rise up in revolt? Black Beetle was so conflicted that he wanted to hit the ground. Luonan didn't care about Black Beetle's reaction at all. His voice didn't even pause. From what I can see, Black Beetle's gear set, order frame, has a total of 4 gears inside and out. In the middle is a large gear formed from the structure of body and soul. Practically all power must circulate through it. Every ability user must possess such a central hub. This was relatively simple, and Puppeteer had no trouble understanding it. However, Puppeteer's attention was a bit off. His ice-cold gaze swept back and forth over Black Beetle's motionless body. Needless to say, Puppeteer believed 80% of Black Beetle's story of Luonan playing dead. Puppeteer had let Black Beetle down earlier, but since he had offended Black Beetle, there was no point in thinking too much about it. Puppeteer was more concerned about how to deal with this variable. Black Beetle has an outer gear aside from the central gear. That is, the 27 beetles scattered on the viewing platform and the 6 beetles in his necktie. The precise number Luonan spoke drew Puppeteer's attention back. Luonan gave a rough sense. The numbers scattered on the platform should be about the same. However, that gaudy necktie was Black Beetle's core tool. It was always hidden tightly. How did Luonan confirm it? After hesitating for a moment, Puppeteer decided not to take it seriously. Luonan continued to speak. The 33 beetles appear to be scattered, but they are actually intimately connected through the activation of soul strength. They can form another gear structure at any time. This method should be more flexible, and it wouldn't matter if he threw a few of them. However, the material was relatively brittle, and if he really used it, it would probably only have enough power for one attack. Also, his necktie looks pretty good. It should be polished with gears often. What I mean is that he often uses interference force to communicate with his chi. It can be used as a medium for activation, and it's not that fragile, so it should be more practical. It's insect explosion and poison sting. The former is a corrosive poisonous mist, while the latter is a killing move of the flexible sword style. They are Black Beetle's 2 secret skills. Zhang Yingying's voice passed through the wristband to supplement Luonan's words. It allowed the stupefied Xue Lei to hear it a bit more clearly. At the same time, Xue Lei could tell that Zhang Yingying's voice was a bit shaky at the end. What the hell? What the hell? Black Beetle was unable to hear Puppeteer's thoughts. He was also unable to hear Zhang Yingying's explanation, but he didn't need to. Even though he was unfamiliar with descriptions like gear and order frame, what Luonan said was something that had fused into his blood. It was the foundation of his foothold in this world. Now that Luonan had pointed them out one by one, it would be strange if he felt comfortable. Black Beetle was instinctively unwilling to believe it. No, this isn't logical. I'll think about it. My information is confidential, but the society is a place with openings on all sides. Zhang Yingying and that mechanical woman know my ins and outs. This little bastard probably knew the result long ago, so he used that so-called order frame of his to wrap things up and mess with my mind? Or maybe this kid doesn't care if I'm awake or not. He just wants to use me to divert Puppeteer's attention? The more Black Beetle thought, the more suspicious he became. The more he thought, the angrier he became. He was conflicted in his mind for quite a while, but he still clenched his teeth and made a decision. He would deal with the myriad of changes by remaining unchanged. In any case, his face was stuck to the ground. He might as well just leave his face on the ground. He would just treat Luonan's words as farts, and he wouldn't move. At this time, Puppeteer took the initiative to ask Luonan, "Didn't you say there are 4 gears? There are only 2. The third gear is a bit different from the first 2. It is independent from Black Beetle's body and soul structure. It's called coupling, but it's more like a parasitic. Parasitism can also be considered a type of coupling. I think it counts." Luonan's words were unclear, but they nailed Black Beetle to the ground the instant they entered his ears. Impossible. Black Beetle felt as if someone had used an ice blade to cut open the back of his neck. A bone-piercing chill and pain spread from the center of his spine to the 2 ends. In the blink of an eye, even his toes were covered in ice. Others might be confused, but Black Beetle's mind was crystal clear. What Luonan was talking about was his life bug. The source of his ability was a mutant beetle. He had accidentally swallowed it into his stomach in his early years, and it fused with his extraordinary power to build a unique ability structure. He had nurtured it for many years, and the mutant demon bug had already been deeply rooted within his body. It had become the most important foundation of his ability. This was the #1 secret of his life. He had always kept it rotten in his stomach, never mentioning it to anyone. How could Luonan possibly know? Unless this kid had a pair of clairvoyant eyes that could see through his internal organs and see through all of his secrets. It was also at this time that Black Beetle recalled the feeling of being transparent and bright, unobstructed and unobstructed. The wind blew through the gaps, and the light shone on the earth. Was there a pair of incorporeal eyes behind this unfathomable sense of transparency? Staring at him all the time, not leaving a single hair behind? Black Beetle's heart beat wildly with this thought. He slapped the ground across his chest, and the aura on his body fluctuated. Everyone present had keen senses. Naturally, it was impossible to hide it from them. This kid is really playing dead. Xue Lei had a straightforward temperament. He shouted out, "Go F*** King die." Even though Black Beetle's face was pressed against the ice-cold ground, it was as if a fire had been ignited at this moment. An explosion rang in Black Beetle's mind, and a buzzing noise similar to tinnitus poured into his mind. This noise was mixed with emotions of fear and fury. It was like a rising flame, incinerating his plan of playing dead into ashes. He suddenly bent his elbows and straightened his body. Whether it was his body or his consciousness, his first reaction was to charge forward and tear apart the demon that had exposed the greatest secret of his life. Xue Lei had been moving forward by half a body's length from beginning to end. Now he took a diagonal step, blocking Luonan behind his broad shoulders. Speed wasn't Black Beetle's strong suit, but strange shifting was engraved in his bones. Even though his mind was a mess right now, Black Beetle still instinctively chose to move when faced with Xue Lei's rock-solid stance. With a few slight movements, Black Beetle shifted Xue Lei's center of gravity, and he saw the face behind Xue Lei. A small portion of Luonan's face was revealed. He only had one eye, and only a slit could be seen in his eye socket. The deep red color absorbed all the light, and it was pitch black. It transformed into an incorporeal pressure that pressed against Black Beetle's chest. There's still the 4th gear. I just put it on not too long ago. Before Puppeteer could finish speaking, a gale rose on the half-open viewing platform, and Xue Lei and Black Beetle collided together. Explosions rang out one after another, and Luonan's hoarse and weak voice drifted away. It was far away, and Puppeteer might not be able to hear it clearly unless he focused his mind. Puppeteer wasn't sure if Luonan was talking to him or not, but it sounded very much like Luonan's tone. The 4th gear doesn't belong to him at all. It comes from the outside. At first, it served a defensive function. It was like a lampshade shielding against mental attacks. But right now, the coupling method has changed. It has changed from a lampshade to a lasso. Black Beetle grunted and retreated. Xue Lei's close combat ability was at least a level higher than his own. Black Beetle had no chance of victory in a direct confrontation. Plus, Luonan's voice lingered by his ear without dispersing. Luonan's words pierced his mind over and over again, making it hard for Black Beetle to continue fighting. Black Beetle shifted his body greatly to the side. He no longer exposed his back to Puppeteer. Instead, he formed a long and narrow triangle before stopping. He gasped for breath slightly. His gaze first stared at Luonan, then turned to Puppeteer. Then, his gaze flitted across the various shadows of the platform. His mind wavered like his gaze. As for Luonan and Puppeteer, the gazes cast over from both sides seemed to be quite subtle. Intense unease and fear materialized, rolling within Black Beetle's chest and abdomen. Snake tongue. Give me a reply. What responded to him was a hissing sound. It was quiet and dark, like the hissing of a viper in the darkness. Scales slithered. Black Beetle was overwhelmed with shock when he wanted to move. A terrifying feeling of numbness rose from his abdomen all the way up, drowning his internal organs and drowning his throat. The power of the numbness continued to rise. A buzzing sound pierced into his brain. Black Beetle's eyeballs bulged, and veins crawled over the whites of his eyes. His eyes were filled with fear and despair. This was his life bug. He had always carefully kept it within his abdomen, keeping it separate from his internal organs. But now, the demon bug had gone out of control. The mutant demon bug's terrifying instincts awoke under the influence of the strange hissing sound. It bit its way through Black Beetle's intestines, stomach, chest, throat, and all the way to the brain. Black Beetle wanted to struggle, but his opponent didn't give him any chance. As the feeling of numbness and the buzzing sound of the bug entered his brain, his consciousness darkened. His spiritual light was lost forever. The violent wind masked Luo Nan's long and drawn-out sigh. Luo Nan didn't want to save Black Beetle. He just wanted to give Black Beetle a warning and trip up his opponent's secret plan. However, he never thought that Black Beetle's methods would be so ruthless. Black Beetle had directly awakened the mutant bug parasitizing within Black Beetle's abdomen. The roles of host and guest were reversed. Black Beetle died rigidly in the wind. He was thoroughly dead. Right now, his body only existed as the exoskeleton of the mutant demon bug. He was tossed about at will. Xue Lei wasn't too sure. He sized up Black Beetle with vigilance and asked Luo Nan, "Is he?" Luo Nan nodded. Before Xue Lei could finish speaking, Black Beetle opened his mouth. "Yasakasha." Black Beetle wiggled his lips, tongue, and throat. The range was very clear, but his voice was vague and hoarse. When he used too much strength, a green spike even protruded from his mouth. It even swayed left and right. Chapter 309. No matter how fast I rushed, I was still half an hour late. I was enlightened in anger to change the title. This is a contradiction between the details of the outline. Everyone, please don't mind. Xue Lei was extraordinarily courageous and insightful when he saw this situation that went against normal aesthetics. His human instincts made his scalp go numb. He couldn't help but shiver. What kind of monster is this? Luo Nan didn't answer. On the other hand, Black Beetle turned his body a bit to face the two. He continued to speak from his throat. "Pashasha. What Aka means is sorry." Black Beetle enunciated these words perfectly. If one were to close one's eyes, one wouldn't be able to tell the difference between before and after. Even if one were to open one's eyes, it would still be the same person, as long as one could ignore the uncomfortable details. Right now, Black Beetle's behavior was one of incomprehensible restraint and politeness. His hands were a bit stiff as they protected his lower abdomen. They were slightly crossed, and his head was slightly lowered. He really did look like he was apologizing. Acting ahead of time has caused many links to be missed. The transformation still requires a process. Please forgive me. If it wasn't for the unnatural twitching of this fellow's facial muscles, if it wasn't for the fact that insect-like limbs would pop out from his mouth, nose, and even ears from time to time, Black Beetle's current behavior was simply like that of a well-trained etiquette officer. Comparing the front and back, comparing the inside and the outside, gave off a strange, ghastly feeling that made one's heart go cold. Combined with Zhang Yingying's previous warning, Xue Lei reacted to what was going on. He adjusted his position once more, shielding Luo Nan behind his broad shoulders. He faced the thing that was neither man nor insect directly and growled. "Snake tongue. Before the transformation is complete, I really do need to deal with the two of you. However, personally speaking, I hope to engage in a few beneficial exchanges with Lord Luo during this short period of time." The one before him was Black Beetle on the outside, a mutated demon insect on the inside, and a bizarre existence whose will belonged to Snake Tongue. It spoke in a seemingly courteous and frank manner. At the same time, its stiff body leaned forward slightly. It was as if it had adapted to the pronunciation. It quickly became smooth and made a deep bow. It had an extremely respectful appearance. Lord Luo's theory is very enlightening. It has broken through a barrier that has perplexed me for many years. I have learned much. Xue Lei stood between the two. For a moment, he felt that he was quite unnecessary. This was indeed the case. Snake Tongue borrowed Black Beetle's mouth to speak and move. It was just a formality. Her telepathic thoughts treated Shui Lei as nothing. She only stared at Luo Nan. I believe that Lord Luo should have his own set of gears as well, one that is also carrying out a wondrous coupling effect to see through the laws of life. But it doesn't work very well, does it? As he spoke, Black Beetle's face twitched in a way that didn't match his tone at all. A split second later, his two eyeballs silently shattered. Blood splashed out, and the dark green chelicerae protruded from his eye sockets before retracting. Amidst this scene that made one's eyelids jump crazily, Black Beetle's face revealed a smile. The gaps between his pitch-black teeth were filled with an inhuman aura of death. Gears are extraordinary, but the human body is frail. The more complex and mysterious the coupling, the greater the pressure. How much longer can Lord Luo hold on? Luo Nan stood behind Shui Lei. He felt a bit uncomfortable on his face. The blood flowing from his eyes was about to dry up. He used the cuffs of his white coat to wipe his face twice. This small action affected the nerves on his face, bringing him a stinging pain. It was as if a small knife was scraping against his face. He exhaled, doing his best to maintain a calm expression on his face. He spoke softly. Is it because of this that you simply killed Black Beetle to reduce the complexity of the coupling and make it easier to control? Lord Luo's words are more apparent once the meaning is clear. Snake Tongue responded through Black Beetle's body, which was riddled with holes. Right now, she had already caught up to Luo Nan's logic of thought. She could come and go as she pleased. Allow me to express my disagreement. Lord Luo's assertion that Black Beetle is dead is a bit rash. I have only made some changes to his mode of existence. According to Lord Luo's words, I have transformed the central gear into something else. Black Beetle's body twitched violently just as Snake Tongue finished speaking. His entire body shrunk into a ball, and he fell to his knees on the ground. His entire body trembled. Shui Lei subconsciously crossed his arms, pushing Luo Nan back a bit. He was afraid that Black Beetle would stir up some other demonic moth. And at the same time Luo Nan moved, a faint and fine incantation came from Black Beetle. The incantation mingled with the cold wind on the viewing platform and blew in all directions. Shui Lei didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the wind on the platform had weakened. It was a thread too late. A series of soft explosions rang out from every region of the viewing platform. Shui Lei's ears trembled slightly. His gaze spun around, accurately capturing every point of explosion. He saw light green mist rise and fill the air in those places. 27 of them. They should be bugs controlled by Black Beetle. They all exploded. It's a bug explosion. Be careful of the nerve poison inside. It's very corrosive if it's stimulated through special techniques. Zhang Yingying had already learned of Snake Tongue's arrival from her wristband. She grew more and more restless, but she had to feign calmness for the sake of not letting these two rookies panic. She endured with great difficulty. Shui Lei's eyelids twitched wildly. It doesn't look like much, but they're coming from all directions. What's the meaning of this? Zhang Yingying was stupefied. Coming together? Luo Nan interjected. Snake Tongue is currently controlling the airflow on the platform. Leister, can you still climb the building while carrying me? No problem. Even if there was, Shui Lei would still have to overcome it. Then we'll... Forget it. We're a step too late. Luo Nan's voice grew hoarser. His body was indeed under enormous pressure. He grew weaker and weaker, but his mind grew brighter and brighter. It was just as Snake Tongue guessed. The gears formed a coupling relationship under Luo Nan's roughly formed order frame. Perhaps it wasn't smooth, but it was enough to give birth to a spiritual light that illuminated the inside and the outside. There was nothing it couldn't reach, so much so that it possessed astonishing foresight. Unfortunately, Luo Nan's lack of experience in fighting enemies meant that his reaction was a bit slower when facing Snake Tongue, a spellcaster with treacherous and unpredictable thoughts. The frigid airflow on the platform had already become tame and docile under the control of the fine incantation. It spun, sending the light green poisonous mist that was scattered all around. The mist pressed down on Luo Nan and Xue Lei's positions in layer upon layer. Looking at it from afar, it was as if fine muslin was coiled up. It floated in the air and didn't disperse. It converged into a curtain and surrounded the surroundings. It didn't even let the area outside the platform go. It sealed off Luo Nan and Xue Lei's paths of retreat. Xue Lei looked around, and the veins on his forehead throbbed. He had the mind to use the wind from his fists to break apart this layer of poisonous mist curtain, but he thought about Snake Tongue's marvelous wind control spell technique. He was afraid to shoot at the rat for fear of breaking the vases. He might not be afraid of this poisonous mist with his mastery of the talisman realm, but what about Luo Nan? It was impossible for Luo Nan's body to withstand this torment with his bones. Snake Tongue's move was played down, but it poked at their weak spot. What should they do now? Wait for the poison to evaporate? Don't look at this half-open platform. Snake Tongue's wind control technique made this place no different from a completely sealed room to them. This wasn't the end. Xue Lei's eyelids twitched again. He saw Black Beetle, who had just fallen to the ground twitching, slowly crawl up from the ground. Black Beetle's body was still a bit shaky, and his two eyes, which had already turned into bloody cavities, endlessly gushed out blood. His face was pierced by a few sharp insect limbs, but he still revealed a polite smile. The transformation is complete. I've made a fool of myself in front of Lord Luo. The masked smile on Black Beetle's face shattered with a bang before he finished speaking. What replaced it was hatred and insanity that warped to the extreme. The two bloody cavities on his face turned toward Luo Nan's direction. He gnashed his teeth and said, "You little bastard who hides under a woman's skirt. Go die!" The sudden change in style made Xue Lei's scalp explode. His eyes went blurry, and Black Beetle roared as he charged over. He directly charged through the light green poison screen and punched out head-on. The relatively stable poison screen was smashed into a chaotic whirlpool, and Xue Lei's nose was filled with a fishy smell. Xue Lei thought of Luo Nan behind him and flew into a sudden rage. His majestic body actually swelled a size in midair amidst his fierce shout. His body was like a giant, and his heavy fist smashed down. An explosive bang rang out, and Black Beetle flew back at a speed even faster than when he charged. The bones of his right arm had been forcefully smashed into 3 pieces by Xue Lei, and they were pressed down by the heavy fist. They twisted and collapsed back into his forehead, causing his skull to cave in. But the instant Black Beetle was blasted back, Black Beetle's left hand secretly tore off his tie. He took advantage of the situation and swung it across Xue Lei's chest noiselessly. It was as if Black Beetle's clothes had been cut by a sharp blade. They split open in an instant, and a white mark appeared on Black Beetle's chest. The mark quickly turned red and congealed with blood. It was on the verge of breaking, and it even penetrated with a hint of darkness. Xue Lei gritted his teeth without making a sound. He just stared unwaveringly at Black Beetle. Under normal circumstances, Black Beetle's brain would have burst open in exchange for Xue Lei's attack. Xue Lei would have won long ago. But the fellow in front of him had a warped face and cracked skull. What came out wasn't brain. Instead, it was half the body of an ugly demon insect. Black Beetle even grinned and laughed. Oh, the feeling of ventilation isn't bad. Why didn't I discover this before? Xue Lei's mind went cold. He actually didn't know if Black Beetle was standing on the side of him or the demon insect. What in the world was this fellow? Before Xue Lei could finish his thoughts, Black Beetle's expression changed again. His lips and teeth opened and closed, conveying Snake Tongue's will. Lord Luo, does this count as Black Beetle's death? Behind Xue Lei, Luo Nan's voice was low and hoarse, but it was still stable. It's just an incomplete soul. You've kneaded it into a wrath-like monster. That's one way of putting it. Snake Tongue didn't deny it. The scale of life and death is already fuzzy for us. You say death, I say life. Each has their own standards. But what I want to ask is this. If Lord Luo were to become like this, how would you feel at that time? Of course, I definitely won't treat him as crudely as I treated Black Beetle. I will use the most meticulous techniques to slowly knead him. I will make Lord Luo's soul my most precious collection. Under Snake Tongue's control, Black Beetle bowed over once more. The dark green beetle replaced the position of the brain within the cracked skull. It squirmed slightly. When the time comes, I will reconstruct a more suitable body for Lord Luo to place your dazzling soul. If we're lucky enough, we can often exchange and discuss ideas to perfect the order frame and other geniuses. This is my plan. Chapter 310. Luo Nan didn't respond to Snake Tongue's polite and respectful attitude through Black Beetle. He leaned against the protective glass. His eyelids drooped, and his breathing was rapid. He gave people the feeling that he was growing weaker. The four sides of the poison veil were truly fatal to a person with a terrible constitution like him. If he spoke a few more words under these circumstances, Snake Tongue wouldn't even need to increase her strength. He would collapse on his own. Lord Luo? Snake Tongue still used a civilized and polite greeting. Aside from the irreparable flaw in her host's appearance, there was nothing to nitpick about. Shui Lei couldn't stand this hypocrisy. He opened his mouth to ridicule. No wonder your nickname has the word tongue in it. You really talk a lot of nonsense. I'm truly sorry. I really can't think of anything else to do aside from talking. Snake Tongue urged Black Beetle forward 2 steps. This made Shui Lei feel as if he was facing a great enemy. Black Beetle really wasn't much right now, but if the surrounding poison veil rolled a few more times, Luo Nan would most likely collapse. And this was the reason why Snake Tongue was neither fast nor slow. Shui Lei gritted his teeth. Snake Tongue continued to speak. I could have ended this situation much faster. But I'm ashamed that my cultivation isn't up to par. I can't guarantee that your wisdom and aura will be preserved completely. What kind of information you can leave behind will mostly depend on luck. This will have an extremely high chance of erasing Lord Luo's charismatic theory. It would be too much of a pity. Snake Tongue. Puppeteer couldn't stand it any longer above Heavenly Ocean Lake. He looked at his watch once more to confirm the time. Even if the Xia City Police and Cloud City Water Village's security department were all trash, they would certainly have reacted by now. What's more, the Xia City branch was behind them. Now that they had finally gained the upper hand, they had to hurry up and put Luo Nan down and snatch him into their hands. Do your own thing well. Snake Tongue's voice directly rang in his ear. It was a warning that was neither light nor heavy. And at this time, Luo Nan, who had been silent all this time, spoke. You guys were asking about An Wang. Isn't that off topic? Idiot. You're still in the mood to chat? Shut up. Hold your breath. Zhang Yingying was already driving at high speed in the metropolis. Her driving points for this year had already been deducted completely, and she still had to spend most of her effort. She was worried about this troublesome thing, and she really wanted to pull the steering wheel off. Nanster, listen to Sister Ing. Don't talk. Shui Lei also wanted to stop Luo Nan from talking, but Luo Nan patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. Black Beetle continued to act as a mouthpiece, helping Snake Tongue and Luo Nan realize the conversation. From my standpoint, An Wang's whereabouts and the like can't move me as much as Lord Luo's theory. Thank you very much. Luo Nan continued to speak in a weak voice. So what you're saying is that we'll continue to discuss this topic until I'm knocked out by the poisonous mist. Or until you finish constructing your fortifications. There was suddenly no sound on the viewing platform. Fortifications? Regardless of whether it was Shui Lei, Zhang Yingying, or even Puppeteer, who was on the other side, they once again encountered a barrier to understanding. They were stunned for a time. Snake Tongue probably felt the same way. Only after 5 whole seconds had passed did she speak through Black Beetle, but her tone was much heavier than before. Lord Luo, have you been observing me this entire time? I've been guessing at you. Luo Nan's breathing gradually turned hurried. The minute amounts of poison that had seeped into his body were affecting him more and more clearly, but he still spoke. I was thinking that, with your abilities, if you had acted together with Black Beetle and the others and caught me by surprise, I probably wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. But you didn't come. You just made a lampshade. It's better than nothing. It doesn't make sense for a great killing machine to be ordered around by a logistics personnel. So I guessed. Of course, I had the support of a certain person's intelligence. I thought that you must have come here in an out-of-body state. Admittedly, it's convenient, but it's also weak, especially when facing someone like me who specializes in sensing and mental attacks. Your personality should be more cautious and protective of your body. You haven't launched your final attack yet. Perhaps you're worried that you'll use too much strength and be detected by me. If I really do catch you, your defensive abilities will be inferior to Black Beetle and the others. Snake Tongue was silent for a few seconds before she said, "Has Lord Luo discovered my position? I'm not too sure. So I'll listen to you. Let's chat some more?" Snake Tongue didn't make a sound. She seemed to be muttering to herself as she pondered over her next move. Shui Lei, Zhang Yingying, and Puppeteer were speechless for a time. So it turned out that there was another confrontation going on the viewing platform, and they were completely unaware of it. Even though Luo Nan had made it clear, they were still like this. The gazes of Shui Lei and Puppeteer were all focused on Luo Nan's body, but they were unable to see any clues. Luo Nan's complexion was still not too good. The protective glass behind him was curved, making it uncomfortable for him to lean against it. He laboriously adjusted his leaning posture, and when he finally felt a bit more comfortable, he extended 2 fingers and gestured. A second passed, and Snake Tongue spoke through Black Beetle. "Lord Luo's meaning is? To answer your question just now." Luo Nan seemed to be in the mood to talk. "You just asked me about the issue of my order frame. According to Black Beetle's evaluation standards, it contains 2 gears. One is large and one is small." Luo Nan spoke simply, but the inner meaning was much more complicated. Of the 2 gears, the large one was the format pyramid. It was represented by the external neuron and the soul strength stored within it. Xiao Shenyu called it an external technique during his lecture. He said that it was like an enormous iceberg, its laws strict. The small one was the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Luo Nan had made some progress in his 10 days of cultivation. It was an extension of his skeletal system, but it was not mature enough. It could only be considered a sampan floating outside the iceberg. The large and small gears had some sort of coupling relationship from the very beginning. Luo Nan channeled his soul strength from the format pyramid, causing the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to rapidly grow and strengthen. This was one of the reasons. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice and the format pyramid shared information. This was the second reason. This was especially true for the latter. At the very beginning, Luo Nan's clairvoyance on both Black Beetle and Puppeteer's life sketches were obscured by a dense fog, forming interference. After the new coupling relationship took shape, it was like wind passing through a gap. Light illuminated the earth. Most of the dark clouds and turbid mist were swept away from the two's life sketches, and even the entire Star River diagram. Layer upon layer was transparent, marvelous beyond compare. It was impossible for Luo Nan to speak of these details. Rather than saying that he was discussing with Snake Tongue, it would be better to say that he was using the process of speaking to further sort out his thoughts, which were gradually taking shape. Therefore, he didn't care whether or not Snake Tongue responded. He continued speaking, minding his own business. "My problem lies in the fact that the 2 gears aren't on the same order of magnitude. They are too close to each other. They lack a reasonable structure. Even if a coupling relationship is formed, wear and tear is hard to avoid." He turned his face in the direction of the heavenly ocean lake and laughed. He had clearly exposed his shortcomings, but this rare expression made Puppeteer's heart tremble with fear. A special structure is necessary to form a linkage between gears of enormous difference in mass. An intermediate link is necessary. It's like the devil ray. It's rampaging through the crystal pillar, killing countless people. Getting close to it is a dead end. But as long as it's a bit further away, many small fish and shrimps can rely on the food scraps left behind by the devil ray to live quite comfortably. Puppeteer subconsciously looked down at his feet. He only came to a realization when he was halfway there. This topic had gone way too far. Even Snake Tongue was a bit unable to keep up with Luo Nan's rhythm. In the end, she could only let out an unclear sigh. Lord Luo, when you use your unique way of thinking, it truly makes one revere you. However, we are still mortals in essence. It's not a good thing to be too far away from the mortal plane. Black Beetle suddenly took a step forward as he spoke. Xue Lei didn't know how far the situation had developed, but his duty to protect Luo Nan would not change. He immediately bowed slightly, entering a fighting state. Luo Nan paused the communication that only he understood. His bloodshot eyes pointed at Black Beetle's ugly and deformed face, but in the end, he just swept a glance over it. Then he lowered his eyelids. Didn't you want to discuss? I'm very worried about Lord Luo's current situation. Snake Tongue's concern was just like Black Beetle's face. All that was left was a shriveled and empty shell. As she spoke, the light green poison screen silently closed up toward the center. The range was very small, and it was extremely cautious. Black Beetle also pushed forward. His speed wasn't fast, but his center of gravity shifted erratically at any time. It was 70 to 80% of Black Beetle's peak state. Xue Lei had to pay attention to the poison screen and smoke, and he also had to lock onto Black Beetle. He also had to worry about Luo Nan's state. His mind was divided. It was truly exhausting. Xue Lei heard the clear sound of Luo Nan's breathing behind him at this time. He was startled. He turned his head to look, ignoring Black Beetle's movements in front of him. Black Beetle seemed to be stunned as well. He actually didn't take the opportunity to launch an attack. Luo Nan didn't care about what the others were thinking. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. He didn't avoid the toxic environment surrounded by the poison screen and smoke at all. He subconsciously moved his lower jaw during this process, waving away the numbness on his face. The main component of Black Beetle's bug explosion poison should be a polypeptide neurotoxin. The possibility of it being ISTX-3 is a bit higher. It is transmitted through the bloodstream and acts directly on ion channels. It possesses an extremely powerful paralyzing effect. However, Black Beetle has done a great deal of modulation in order to increase the efficiency of the effect. This has increased the possibility of respiratory tract infection, but it has also reduced the toxicity. Luo Nan didn't even raise his eyes when he spoke to this point. He laughed. Does this count as being on the secular level? Ms. Snake Tongue, we agreed to discuss this. It's not good for you to leave midway. Snake Tongue found it hard to conceal her astonishment. Lord Luo has done research on neurotoxins? I've taken a lot of medicine. I can resist it a bit. That being said, Luo Nan would have been in big trouble today if he didn't have the foundation of the container format and the opening of the eye's orifice to stimulate the functions of the human body as a foundation. He definitely wouldn't be like he was right now, breathing out poisonous gas, scaring people, and playing around. Luo Nan leaned against the protective glass and switched to a more comfortable position. He wouldn't tell Snake Tongue that half of his body was covered in numbness. He would tumble if he took a single step. However, his nervous system was in an abnormal excited state due to the stimulation of the neurotoxin. This was what he needed the most right now. Chapter 311. Luo Nan spoke of frames, gears, and so on. His pretentiousness had truly risen. He paired it with a few professional terms, greatly increasing the effect of scaring people. Snake Tongue was silent for a time. She was probably re-evaluating Luo Nan's state. As for Xue Lei, he wasn't too clear on what was going on, but Luo Nan's appearance made him let out a long breath. His entire body relaxed. Nanster, you're amazing. Most of Xue Lei's thoughts were on Luo Nan when he was surrounded by the poisonous mist. The feeling of apprehension and fear was truly unpleasant. It was difficult for him to display his abilities to the fullest. Most of his worries were gone now, and the pressure on his mind was lifted. The energy of his entire body became much smoother. Luo Nan gave Xue Lei a thumbs up. He had no intention of telling him the truth. The feeling of losing control of half his body was unpleasant, but it was worth it if he could free up Xue Lei's immediate combat strength. However, Xue Lei was still afraid. He was worried that his opponent would use some sinister trick, so he whispered, "Nanster, I'll take you down now." No, will attack. Luo Nan's voice was even deeper, but his will was unwavering. The veins on his forehead pulsed slightly. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice coupled with the pyramid to form the glimmering breeze. It brushed across the viewing platform and most of the skyscraper. It illuminated every corner, including the life sketches of every living being. The enormous amount of information was not easy to process. Luo Nan could only roughly differentiate based on the distance and the degree of danger. The information piled up, and one response plan after another took shape, alternating back and forth. Luo Nan didn't lack ideas. What he lacked was judgment built from abundant experience. At this time, the principles created by the experiences of his predecessors became the first basis for his judgment. Therefore, Professor Cragburst's principles of mentality were still the basis for Luo Nan's actions. His self-belief and plans were all built on the unshakable advantage of winning, which also created a will that was as hard as steel at this moment. We don't have the time to continue tangling with Snake Tongue. Right now, we need to get rid of Black Beetle. Without this starting point, Snake Tongue can only act in the mental domain. When that happens, victory will be ours. Shui Lei's gaze cut across Black Beetle. He felt that the distance was suitable. He could advance or retreat, but there would be some variables once the battle began. In this moment of hesitation, his opponent made the first move. The Black Beetle let out a low and hoarse syllable. It sounded like an incantation, but it also sounded like the hissing of insects. The poisonous mist curtains closed around them, and the light green color suddenly deepened as it hissed in the air. Combined with Zhang Yingying's information, it was clear that he had forcefully catalyzed the poisonous fog. Not only was it neurotoxin, but it had also turned into corrosive poisonous fog. Presumably, Snake Tongue felt that the nerve poison wasn't effective enough, so she switched to a corrosive one and tried again. Luo Nan wasn't surprised when he saw this scene. His previous words weren't concealed at all. It was tantamount to forcing Snake Tongue to make a move. He sped up his speech and told Shui Lei, "I remember you saying that you've just mastered the hidden thunder?" Luo Nan didn't wait for Shui Lei to respond. He flipped through the pages of the notebook in his hand, and the last paper man appeared. What was different from its companions was that while it was in midair, its paper body ignited with flames, pouncing into the poison screen that was about to close. Special materials and special techniques formed a special flame. The quality was quite extraordinary, but this was an extremely crude response. The corrosive poisonous fog exploded and ignited upon contact with the fire. Large amounts of sparks sputtered out, and the toxicity violently evaporated. For a time, Shui Lei's eyes and nose were filled with the smell of fire. His scalp felt like it was going to explode, and he finally understood Luo Nan's intentions. He gritted his teeth and let out a deep roar. The energy around his body was restrained, and then it erupted explosively. The martial arts suit on his body rattled, and streams of air rolled chaotically, scattering the oncoming flames. This move could prevent fire, but it could not prevent poison. The poison was instantly activated, and it was several times more intense than before. Even Shui Lei felt his limbs go numb. Fortunately, his body was illuminated by the bright glyph. Soon, these negative feelings were completely suppressed and cleanly swept away. Shui Lei was most worried about Luo Nan. Right when he was about to turn around, someone pushed him on the back. "Make it quick." The push wasn't strong, but it was direct and efficient. It wiped away all distracting thoughts from Shui Lei's mind. Shui Lei growled. He relied on his powerful body to forcefully break through the area of sparks and smoke, charging upward. Luo Nan's body subconsciously wanted to slide down as he watched Shui Lei's figure pounce forward. His already chaotic vision became even more blurry. But soon, the format pyramid and the heart lantern of the eye's orifice coupled to form the glimmering breeze. It blew through his orifices and illuminated his body. Everywhere it passed, the feeling of numbness was greatly alleviated. Strands of heat evaporated, giving him a bit more strength. In the end, he was able to steadily lean against the protective glass. He didn't reveal any fear. Deep within the mental plane, there was a strange shadow hiding behind layers of defense. It was impossible to detect any flaws. Xue Lei's charge was a move that reversed the situation. Black Beetle had pressed forward to a certain distance, but Xue Lei suddenly pounced forward. His powerful explosive strength made him seem like a fierce tiger crossing a ravine. He screamed as he arrived, and the stellar energy around his body directly tore apart the remaining smoke and poison screen midway. Black Beetle's control over the poison mist was completely broken, but his footwork was still erratic. He made timely missteps, allowing Xue Lei to charge at him head-on. Xue Lei's gaze was fierce. His tall and sturdy body instantly made a half-turn like flowing water. His shoulder struck and his elbow struck, drawing out a torrential storm of close-quarters combat. His small range of shifting changes was actually not much inferior to Black Beetle's. Black Beetle's reaction was still inferior to his normal state. He dodged the shoulder strike, but he couldn't dodge the elbow strike. His body suddenly stiffened. Xue Lei seized the opportunity. A low roar burst forth from his throat. Full of energy, he punched out, followed by another. Black Beetle's shoulder, neck, and face suffered heavy blows. At first, there was no sound, but after 3 punches, there was suddenly the sound of thunder. The blows penetrated his skin and flesh, penetrating his brain. The latent energy exploded, and Black Beetle's ugly and deformed head swelled up and then exploded. Within the shattered skull, the beetle's body suddenly shriveled as if it was about to explode. In reality, it had used this to avoid most of the pressure from the punches. It forcefully shrunk downwards, following the broken blood vessels in Black Beetle's broken body. This scene was demonic and terrifying. However, Xue Lei, who had entered battle mode, turned a blind eye to it. He only followed the flow of energy and hammered down with another punch. The sound of thunder rang out once more. The shoulder, neck, and chest of Black Beetle's broken body were severely deformed and caved in. It was no longer humanoid. Any normal person in such a state would have died 100%. However, Xue Lei still didn't feel too good. His gaze locked onto Black Beetle's broken body, and he hammered down again. But at this time, Luo Nan's telepathic thoughts directly entered his mind. Retreat. Xue Lei didn't even think when he was stimulated. He withdrew his fist force and his figure flashed back. Black Beetle's severely caved-in chest suddenly swelled at nearly the same beat as Xue Lei. It looked like his entire body was about to explode, but before it could explode, it was forcefully restrained by an incorporeal force. In the end, only a bloody mist erupted from Black Beetle's neck, which had already turned into rotten flesh. The bloody light hissed in the air. A portion of it sprayed towards Xue Lei's head, but Xue Lei's fist force burst forth, forcibly shaking it away. Xue Lei's expression didn't relax after escaping from danger. He suddenly turned his head to look at Luo Nan, just in time to see the inexplicable flash of lightning in his best friend's blood-red eyes. Before Xue Lei could understand what was going on, a despairing cry rang out in his ear. Ah! The ugly green-shelled beetle emerged once more from the upper half of Black Beetle's broken body. Half of its body fused into the damaged flesh, while the other half, including its head and the hard shell on its back, emitted fiery smoke. The light of flames curled upwards, faintly forming the shape of a human struggling in pain. It was Black Beetle's wraith. Perhaps Black Beetle was clear-headed at this moment, but his resentful emotions had already been reduced to the surface. His screams were filled with despair and fear. His screams were born from his current state of being neither human nor ghost. Snake tongue. Snake tongue. All of Black Beetle's vocal organs had been cleanly destroyed. His screams were actually the materialization of intense negative thoughts. They were like curses, but they were also like begging. Many thanks for your help. An extraordinarily gentle and refined voice quietly entered Black Beetle's ears like a gentle breeze. She used the airflow of the viewing platform as a musical instrument to play, and faintly discernible thoughts seeped in to produce sound. Who would have thought that this was Snake Tongue? The milder Snake Tongue's reply was, the more intense Black Beetle's reaction became. The intense emotions made the light of the flames burn even more. But no matter what, Black Beetle was just a potted plant in a flower pot of flesh and blood. No matter how it twisted and struggled, it couldn't break free. It couldn't die. It just swayed back and forth with its ruined body. The scene sent chills down one's spine. Snake Tongue didn't have the leisure to chat with a fellow whose self-awareness was about to be extinguished. Her tone grew all the more relaxed and gentle. Indeed, many thanks to Black Beetle. He allowed Lord Luo to display his strengths, and he allowed me to use this method to come into contact with Lord Luo. Shuelei didn't really understand what Snake Tongue meant, but when he heard her tone and the change in her previous sinister methods, he instinctively felt that something was wrong. Nanster? Luo Nan leaned against the protective glass. His blood-red eyes locked onto Black Beetle. The blood that had just stopped flowed down once more, dripping from his chin onto his white coat. Soon, an eye-piercing mark appeared. Black Beetle's body had swelled to the point of explosion just now. Luo Nan had used his soul strength to forcefully interfere with Black Beetle's central gear, forcefully pressing it down. Otherwise, what sprayed out wouldn't have been a bloody mist. Instead, it would have been a standard flesh bomb. Shuelei might not have been able to withstand it, and Luo Nan would not have been able to withstand the rapidly spreading toxins in the environment. Luo Nan's interference technique was extremely ingenious. He had to have the ability to clearly see through the enemy's foundation. Only then could he do it. However, Snake Tongue was the manipulator of the other side. She had long since buried a trap here. Luo Nan's soul strength had just seeped in when she firmly locked it in place. The soul strength of the two collided head-on for the first time, forming a dangerous deadlock. The flesh bomb would explode with a bang if Luo Nan shrunk back in the slightest. Move back. Luo Nan squeezed out 3 words from between his teeth. Shuelei hesitated a bit, then he moved back. Snake Tongue borrowed the power of the wind to speak. Her voice was like a shadow following a body. She seemed to be in the mood for discussion. From the effects of the soul animating the paper man, the intensity of Lord Luo's interference power far exceeds the scope of what the intelligence indicated. Aside from the dereliction of duty of the intelligence personnel, this is the result of the coupling of the 2 gears. It must be a method that he just comprehended. Luo Nan calculated Shuelei's safe distance as he responded coldly, "Correct. No bonus points." However, Lord Luo should know very well that the root of your problem doesn't lie in your interference power. Instead, it lies in the serious imbalance between your body and soul. In other words, the problem of the disparity in the size of the gears. The more stunning your performance is, the more severe the consequences will be. So you used Black Beetle to create this trap for me? Luo Nan knew that creating a deadlock situation was absolutely not Snake Tongue's ultimate goal. Even though they were in a deadlock, Snake Tongue still used her superb soul strength to operate her techniques. She pressed down bit by bit, forcing Luo Nan to increase his input accordingly. They intertwined with each other until they transformed into a powerful incorporeal vortex. It was like a melee fight on the mental plane. This was none other than Snake Tongue's meticulous design. She used this method to make Luo Nan sink into the mud of a tug-of-war. Her ultimate goal was to avoid the powerful and fierce long-range attack. Though Snake Tongue had exposed the true location of her soul, she had dispelled the explosive power of Luo Nan's soul strength behind layers upon layers of defensive fortifications. It could be said that she had nothing to fear. Luo Nan sighed, "Fine. I want to say that you distorted the central gears to forcefully realize the mutual effects of the 4 gears on Black Beetle's body. This is absolutely not coupling. This kind of structural relationship is crude and low-level. It lacks beauty." Snake Tongue's voice was gentle. She sounded more like a teacher reciting beautiful poems. Things don't go as one wishes in the world. In the end, we still need to use the most realistic method to solve problems. Therefore, I used a low-level structure to draw in Lord Luo's interference to restrict your soul's strength. Next, I will use this unesthetic form of wrestling to touch the limits of your body bit by bit until it completely collapses. Perhaps it will be hard to retain your light of wisdom like this, but I can still add a top-notch collection to my collection. Collect your ancestor. Shuelei angrily spat back. His eyes stared fixedly at the remains of Black Beetle's wraith. Even though he didn't understand the details, he knew that the most crucial point was there. It didn't matter if it was a hook or a trap. It was nothing once it was smashed. Though Xue Lei's figure was still moving back, it was smaller. He could counterattack at any time, and his speed would absolutely give his opponent a pleasant surprise. But Luo Nen called out to him once more, "Leicester, calm down. It's rare to have someone to chat with." Luo Nan's body couldn't hold on any longer as he spoke. He slowly slid down and sat on the ground. Xue Lei turned to look, and his face flushed red when he saw this. His teeth were about to shatter from gritting them. But even so, Luo Nan still made a pacifying gesture towards him, wanting him to come back. Just as Xue Lei was gritting his teeth and struggling, Luo Nan raised his face slightly. He faced the location of Snake Tongue's sole true body and spoke softly as if he were chatting, "Miss Snake Tongue, I must correct one of your views. Coupling relationships are divided into coarse and fine, low and high, but most of them are divided into existence and non-existence. If there is, then there is. If there isn't, then there isn't. You can't use coarse and low level as an excuse. Do you agree?" Snake Tongue didn't feel any emotion of admiration when she saw that Luo Nan was able to maintain his composure in the face of a hopeless situation. She just went over her design from beginning to end once more and reconfirmed the strength of the fortifications. Only after everything was confirmed did she laugh softly. "Lord Luo's way of speaking has a sort of arrogance to it. Can I understand that you are the only person who can explain your mother's research field?" Luo Nen really did think it over carefully for a moment before shaking his head and saying, "Not necessarily." "Then, Lord Luo is deliberately creating a topic to stall for time and wait for reinforcements?" Luo Nan was stunned for a moment, then he immediately said, "Can't we just discuss the matter as it is?" Coupling wasn't a basket that anyone could fit into. An overly broad definition would only diminish its value. Just like the flesh bomb you created, you're only creating conflict and chaos, but you're stingy in building a new order. If you insist on your view, then I also insist that you really don't understand coupling. Over at Heavenly Ocean Lake, Puppeteer had already reached his limit before Snake Tongue could respond. He's just stalling for time. A military shuttle is rushing over. Look at the lights. At the end of the pitch-black curtain of night, nothing could actually be seen. However, it was already the peak hour of work. The lights of the vehicles were a bit chaotic. With the relevant experience, it was very easy to determine that these vehicles had received the message to make space for a military police ship that had temporarily cut in line to land. Snake Tongue was calm and collected. It doesn't matter. In the current situation, unless the three heavyweights of Xia City rush over, no one will be able to help him out. Puppeteer nearly cursed out loud. "You're a soul body. You can come and go as you please. I need time to retreat." He forcefully suppressed his emotions back into his stomach. He also understood that he couldn't keep playing with someone like Snake Tongue, so he decided to retreat first. Puppeteer shot a glance at the fuse that was already on the verge of death. This person was already useless. "Forget it. I've done my part. I'll help you one more time. You guys play slowly. I won't keep you company. Yeah, before that, I need to leave behind a few beautiful memories." Puppeteer faced Luo Nan and Xue Lei with a smile as brilliant as the sun, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Then he contacted Tank through his wristband, who had yet to appear. "Floating. Do something that leaves a deep impression on people. Like lighting a fire or something?" Luo Nan's drooping eyelids suddenly twitched twice. Xue Lei was stupefied for a moment before he suddenly came to a realization. He hastily turned his head to look at the distant wetland jungle. However, the sky had long since darkened. What could he see? Even so, it was impossible to count on the kindness of this group of people. Puppeteer continued chatting with Tank. "If time is a bit tight, then just burn the top. Pay attention to destroying the fire system first." "Holy crap. That fast? Okay, I'm just talking nonsense. I trust in your professional level. F***CK. Xue Lei's hair stood on end as he thought about the misfortune that the legendary building was currently suffering. He cursed loudly, Snake Tongue, you dare? Puppeteer shrugged. None of her business. This has nothing to do with me. Snake Tongue's voice was as gentle as before. However, regret is a hook buried within one's memories. It can always pull out the most moving tastes in the world. I don't mind painting my collection with a layer of tragic colors. Puppeteer cursed her inwardly for being unreasonable. His gaze behind the diving goggles swept past Shui, who was practically on the verge of burning. There was also Luo Nan, who was sitting on the ground. Only his blood-red eyes faced Luo Nan, who had an expressionless face. Hiss, steady. You're pretending to be like this to purposefully disgust people, right? Fine, we'll be disgusted by each other. Puppeteer's smile grew even wider. Fine. You guys chat slowly. I'll be leaving first. Oh, thank you, Snake Tongue. You saved me the expense of a fuse. As he spoke, his thumb, which was gripping Tianxi's slender neck, rose slightly. He forcefully moved the woman's chin, forcing her to regain a bit of clarity. Emotions of fear surfaced once more within Tianxi's hazy and dazed pupils. Puppeteer smiled in satisfaction and whistled again. The water of the heavenly ocean lake rumbled, and the devil ray restlessly slapped the surface of the water. Its enormous mouth split open, and it looked at the figure above, drooling with desire. Puppeteer laughed softly, but he deliberately raised his voice. This is your reward. Drag it down and enjoy it slowly. Don't be too anxious. Let the people on every level take a look. Let our Mr. Luo have ample time to consider. His mother's work or his lover's life? Which one should he save first? Or perhaps he can't save either? Puppeteer's gaze pointed at Luo Nan once more. His gaze locked with those blood-red eyes, and he maintained a smile. His 5 fingers loosened, allowing Tianxi to fall down. The water rumbled, and the devil ray slapped its pectoral fins. It leaped up, its large mouth opened with fine teeth, and it faced the figure above. It was in this instant that Puppeteer saw the blood overflowing from Luo Nan's eyes, as well as the marks that continued to be engraved on his face. Puppeteer's heart was incomparably satisfied. His index and middle fingers, which had just been freed from the burden, streaked across Luo Nan's forehead, sending a greeting. We'll never meet again. Puppeteer gently leaped up, heading toward the dome. He was just about to cross over the framed steel beams when he heard the muffled sound of falling into the water. The clear difference made his heart skip a beat, and he instinctively lowered his gaze. He just happened to see the devil ray unfurl its pectoral fins that exceeded 15 meters in length. It was like an enormous demonic bat as it soared into the air and landed beneath Puppeteer's feet. Why did it fly so high? Hold on. Was that the sound of water? Puppeteer's gaze shifted, and he saw a velvet skirt temporarily bulging from being soaked in the water within the undulating waves of the heavenly ocean lake. Get out of the way! Snake Tongue's unprecedented warning exploded, causing Puppeteer to shiver in shock. However, this did not hinder his instincts, which had been tempered over and over again, from forcefully shifting his position. And at nearly the same time, another deep shout exploded directly on the soul plane. Puppeteer! Puppeteer knew that he absolutely should not be distracted, but the fierce and cold blade that penetrated the depths of his soul forced Puppeteer to turn his head. He locked eyes with the blood-filled eyes in the distance. Lightning tore through the turbid blood, dazzling to the eye. Even though he was wearing diving goggles, Puppeteer still instinctively squinted his eyes. It was as if he really could see a lightning spear flickering in the night sky, heading straight for his chest. At this moment, all his instincts and tempering were annihilated in a puff of smoke under the soul-tearing attack. Puppeteer's body stiffened in the most unnatural way. The mutant devil ray's body was enormous, and its flying momentum was swift and violent. Even though Puppeteer had shifted at least 3 body lengths, it was still not enough. It was far from enough. A rain of blood sprayed out, and the sharp teeth of the devil ray's mouth latched onto Puppeteer's right arm. It was the same arm that had previously choked Tianxi. In an instant, Puppeteer's limbs were separated. Then came the impact of the pectoral fins and wings. the hidden mutated barbs directly pierced through Puppeteer's chest, piercing in along with 2 rows of ribs. The sharp pain caused him to sober up a bit. He kicked with all his might, and he actually managed to borrow some strength to fly to the side. However, the over 10-meter-long tail of the whip buzzed as it lashed out, bringing with it the sound of chains shaking. The heavy whip struck Puppeteer right in the face. His diving goggles shattered and splattered, revealing Puppeteer's bulging eyes as well as his exceptionally incredulous expression. In the blink of an eye, all of this was torn to pieces by the powerful pressure that burst forth. Only a headless and mutilated body fell straight into the heavenly ocean lake. Waves of blood came and went, and very soon, it was completely diluted. Chapter 312. After killing the previous controller in one fell swoop, the Devil Ray took the opportunity to sink. Its huge flat body was almost touching the surface of the water, but it did not enter the water. It only flapped its strong pectoral fins. The pectoral fins were not wings after all, and the frequency of their undulation was very slow. However, when the airflow passed through the cross-sections that looked like waves, it was affected by an amazing force and gathered layer by layer. The density of the airflow increased and became one of the sources of power, allowing the gigantic body that weighed several tons to be lifted in the air calmly. The 15-meter-wide behemoth floated above the viewing platform. It was not only spectacular, but it was also terrifying. The pool below was affected by the compressed air, and waves surged up the shore layer by layer. Tian-Si, who had just fallen into the water, was also lifted up by the surging waves. She lay on the edge of the pool in a daze. On the other hand, Puppeteer, who was completely dead, was completely submerged in the ripples of water, vanishing without a trace. You can already control mutants, yet you're doing such meticulous work? Due to the impact of Puppeteer's death, at least half of Snake Tongue's attention was currently focused on the heavenly ocean lake. Actually, she could still accept the Devil Ray's betrayal. Puppeteer, this half-baked Puppeteer, deserved to die this way. It was just a matter of time. On the other hand, mutants with strengthened bodies were not much of a threat to her. What truly concerned Snake Tongue was Luo Nan's method of controlling the Devil Ray. Based on the Devil Ray's performance, it was able to clearly distinguish between a person who had fallen into the water. It had sent Tian-Si to the shore and let Puppeteer's corpse sink to the bottom. The rarest thing was to follow one's natural instincts and make use of the impact of the waves. This was the consideration of the Devil Ray, not the thinking of humans. This proved one point: Luo Nan's control over the Devil Ray was to subdue it, not to manipulate it. This was an extremely high-level technique even among the Puppeteers. Puppeteer had used professional techniques to bypass it, but what did Luo Nan rely on? Luo Nan must have seen Puppeteer reveal the Devil Ray. Luo Nan only acted on the spur of the moment. During this entire process, neither Puppeteer nor Snake Tongue herself noticed anything at all. Even when the Devil Ray betrayed them, Snake Tongue still couldn't confirm what was going on. This method was not mentioned in the intelligence. Of course, Luo Nan intimidated Puppeteer with his long-range bombardment, causing Puppeteer to lose his life. The impact on Snake Tongue was even more direct. It was clear that Luo Nan wasn't restricted by her at all. What in the world was going on with her entanglement on the mental plane? This guy is like a treasury. No, an armory. Snake Tongue was completely unable to predict what this seemingly inexperienced and stubborn half-grown child would pull out in the next moment. Could formatting theory and coupling theory be a spiritual weapon production line? Due to the impact of Puppeteer's immediate death, Snake Tongue's considerations had clearly increased, to the point where she forgot for a moment that now wasn't a good time to mull over such matters. With a slight jolt, he locked onto the location of his soul body. Snake Tongue's heart sank a bit. She saw Luo Nan turn his head at the edge of the viewing platform. The lightning in his eye sockets tore apart the bloodstains and pierced through the air. It was the move he had used to deal with Puppeteer. Snake Tongue had exposed the location of her soul body for the sake of better entanglement with Luo Nan on the mental plane. She looked at Luo Nan from a distance, separated by the remains of Black Beetle's body. At the time, she was certain that Luo Nan could only struggle in the mud of soul strength. Long-range attacks would be hard to realize. She had nothing to fear. But Puppeteer used his life to remind her. His judgment was completely wrong. Snake Tongue knew that it was too late to dodge, so she relied on the fortifications to resist. Unfortunately, the tyrannical attack that he had predicted did not come. There was only a wisp of gentle wind and a beam of faint light. It was slightly warm, but it was the wind brushing against the sunlight. It was very penetrating. What's wrong? Snake Tongue had a bad feeling. On the mental plane, the creeping grass leaves and thick vines trembled noiselessly. They crisscrossed layer by layer, forming a special structure that covered the majority of the viewing platform. The complex surface structure often caused people to overlook the roots of the vines. In reality, every thick vine had a parasitic soil. Earlier, when Luo Nan had cleared the area, he had knocked down several dozen tourists. These people had been used as trash by Snake Tongue. She had planted the Nightmare Vine spell on them, interweaving their energy, blood, and soul power into a net, becoming the foundation of her fortifications. This move was similar to Puppeteer's fuse, but it was more exquisite. Not only could it divert the mental attack, it could also forcefully stimulate everyone's potential, causing the Nightmare Vine to grow wildly. It became a resource for Snake Tongue to control. It was suitable for both offense and defense. But right now, Luo Nan's mental attack did not come. There was just a gentle breeze blowing and a glimmer of light shining through the gaps in the structure of the Nightmare Vine spell. It was all-pervasive, making Snake Tongue feel that water had already seeped through the layers of fortifications she had constructed. An ominous cloud covered Snake Tongue's mind for the first time. Luo Nan's choice made Snake Tongue even more fearful than his methods. He was a young man. An eye for an eye. After killing a powerful enemy with a backhand, he had come with the momentum of a great victory. He should have carried on the experience of his victory and made persistent efforts in order to achieve victory a second time. But Luo Nan did not. All the intelligence indicated that this child lacked actual combat experience. But he had performed an inconceivable transformation between hard and soft. He had used the most correct and intelligent method to see through the trap of the fortifications. It was very hard to explain this with experience or intuition. It was as certain and natural as copying a standard answer. Snake Tongue knew that if this continued, her foundation would be stripped clean. And that would undoubtedly be the time for Luo Nan's mental attack to completely tear apart her defenses. What to do? 100 thoughts flowed through Snake Tongue's mind, but they were all meaningless. This was because she could no longer see through Luo Nan. Beep, beep. A ringing sound came from Luo Nan's wristband. This was a warning sent by the control center after the fire protection system of gear was cut off. The destruction of the tank continued. It was only a matter of time before the fire started. Luo Nan's face was as gloomy as water. Snake Tongue could feel the irritation within the soul strength that was projected over. A cold, killing intent seeped out from the glimmering breeze. It was unreserved. However, Luo Nan's penetrative force was not affected. He just shifted his gaze to the sky above the heavenly ocean lake, pointing straight at the devil ray floating above the water. The sound of water surged, and the devil ray's height increased. Its pectoral fins flapped slightly, and it flew away from the sky above the heavenly ocean lake. It pressed down to the edge of the viewing platform. Luo Nan, Shuelei, and even the remains of Black Beetle and Snake Tongue's soul body were all placed under the shadow of its flat body. Before Snake Tongue could react to what was going on, the devil ray's pectoral fins lashed out. The remains of Black Beetle in front of her were like a smashed basketball. His entire body deflated, and he was flung over 30 meters away. He only stopped when he smashed into a decorative statue on the platform. The pure power of the attack did not break the balance. Instead, it simply crushed him. Plus, Snake Tongue was distracted. She didn't react in time, and the flesh bomb didn't even explode. It was destroyed. 70 to 80% of the bones in the remains of Black Beetle's body were shattered. He was like a broken water bag, blood gushing out. His foundation was destroyed. Black Beetle's wraith was like a candle in the wind. It flickered twice, and then it was completely extinguished. Snake Tongue didn't even let out a grunt. At least half of this attack was meant to vent his anger. So what? Luo Nan controlled the Devil Ray, killed Puppeteer, destroyed Black Beetle, and grasped the initiative on the mental plane. Right now, Luo Nan was the master on the viewing platform. Everything he did was correct. The destruction of the flesh bomb meant that Snake Tongue had lost yet another bargaining chip. The situation was even worse. Looking at the entanglement of soul strength now, it was simply a self-directed, self-indulgent farce. The funniest part was that she still didn't know how Luo Nan had split his strength to control the Devil Ray, kill Puppeteer, and then attack again in the blink of an eye. Could it be that Luo Nan's soul strength was limitless? His body? How could his body possibly hold on? On the other side, the body of the Devil Ray was far too large. It was hard to control its balance in the air. It had just slapped away the flesh bomb when the tip of its fin accidentally struck the protective glass at the edge of the viewing platform, directly breaking open a huge gap. Shards swirled in the air, and some of them landed on Luo Nan and Shui Lei's heads. Shui Lei raised his head to look at the sinister bloody cavity on the Devil Ray's abdomen. He was still a bit stupefied. Luo Nan must have been nervous to see it sink bit by bit, but he didn't understand how it had reached this step. Leicester, give me a hand. Luo Nan supported himself against the protective glass and slowly stood up. His legs were still weak. Shui Lei had no time to think. He rushed forward to support Luo Nan's arm. Only now did he remember to grimace in pain. Was this done by you? Relax. It's quite obedient. It was just as Luo Nan said. The Devil Ray displayed itself to be extremely docile. It seemed to have recovered some traces of its personality from before its mutation. It sank bit by bit. An incorporeal magnetic field counteracted most of the gravity, and the compressed air that flowed through its pectoral fins and wings stirred up faintly discernible ripples. It carried out fine adjustments to its posture, displaying its ability to hover at an extremely low altitude. The Devil Ray descended until it was only 15 centimeters from the ground. It was like a standard flight of stairs, but it was a bit too wide. Its enormous body seemed to be rippling endlessly, but not a single drop of water actually touched the ground. Only water droplets sprinkled onto the floor tiles of the platform. Luo Nan sized it up quietly, feeling the obedience and fear of this enormous creature. On a plane that the vast majority of people were unable to reach, the high imitation version of the human-faced arachnid had already fused most of its body into the Devil Ray's body. Incorporeal spider silk pierced through its body, penetrating and twisting nearly all of its vital organs. It turned the Devil Ray into a temporary parasitic target. Just like this, the Devil Ray still had room to struggle and resist. The problem was on an even more marvelous plane. The heavily chained crow invaded the Star River scene of Luo Nan's mental clairvoyance, locking onto the life sketches of the Devil Ray. It pierced through every star, weaving them into an even more abstract three-dimensional picture. Amidst the deep vibrating sound, the Devil Ray no longer had a domain of freedom that belonged to it from the inside out. It could only lower its head. Luo Nan extended his hand and lightly touched the side of its pectoral fins that were flipping like waves. The outside was wrapped in a layer of mucus. It was cool and smooth to the touch, but the force was not light. It jolted Luo Nan's palm numb. Nanster, don't. Chapter 3:13. Shui Lei's worry was justified. The smooth and soft back was not easy to stand on, and Luo Nan was very weak right now. If Shui Lei had not supported him, Luo Nan would have been swung off the moment his other foot left the ground. Luo Nan had no intention of giving up halfway. He took a deep breath, and lightning flashed in his eyes once more. The marvelous coupling power of the big and small gears penetrated through his body. It was like the stimulation of an electric shock cardiopulmonary resuscitation. The pores of his entire body opened up, and a numbing heat wrapped around him. The heat was dense and undissipated in a small circle inside and outside his body. Shui Lei was caught off guard by the feeling of electricity passing through his palm. He let go by reflex, but his reaction was top-notch. He extended his hand to support Luo Nan, but Luo Nan exerted force with his left foot, which was on the edge of the Devil Ray's back. He stepped out and truly stood on the flat body of the Devil Ray. The Devil Ray was not quite used to it. The amplitude of the undulations of its body suddenly increased, and Luo Nan's body involuntarily leaned forward. But under the coupling effect of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice, it shone at the right time. Lines filled with foresight were laid out. It was like an incorporeal spider web was laid out on the Devil Ray's back. The marvelous stickiness, the corresponding sense of balance between Luo Nan and the Devil Ray, rapidly increased. Luo Nan's own predictions, his control over the devil ghost fish, and the information-sharing mode formed by the coupling of the large and small gears allowed Luo Nan's foresight to penetrate deep into every corner of the devil ghost fish's body. Even the changes in its emotions could be seen. His heart lantern of the eye's orifice had yet to truly reach maturity, but the changes that came from the coupling had already exceeded the limits of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Gym Master Xiao spoke of a heart lantern, a candle illuminating the 9 hells. Luo Nan had yet to see the 9 hells, but he was not inferior to Gym Master Xiao in the heart abyss. Aside from the separation of skin and flesh, Luo Nan and the Devil Ray could be said to be one body. They existed around Luo Nan's will. Under this state, Luo Nan took a step, and the force of his body leaning forward was eliminated. He swayed slightly and he grasped balance. He seemed to be in danger, but he was actually stable. The Devil Ray beneath him rippled endlessly. Luo Nan thought for a bit and simply stopped moving. The vibrations of the flat body of the Devil Ray beneath him increased in amplitude, and Luo Nan intentionally controlled the mode. Luo Nan stepped on the rippling body and moved forward smoothly, all the way to the front of the head of the Devil Ray. His thoughts stirred slightly, and the 2 long fins of the Devil Ray flipped over. These things were originally used by the Devil Ray to assist in hunting. Right now, Luo Nan was using them as handrails. He borrowed strength to stand steadily atop the Devil Ray's enormous body. The Devil Ray felt a bit awkward being gripped by Luo Nan's head fins. But right now, it was intimidated by Luo Nan's gloomy thundercloud-like emotions. The actions of its enormous body were naturally influenced by those emotions. The frequency at which its pectoral fins and wings flapped increased by quite a bit. "Nanster, don't be rash." Shui Lei wanted to jump up as well, but this would instantly break the balance between Luo Nan and the Devil Ray. It would be much more difficult to adjust. Therefore, the Devil Ray shook its body in a very unfriendly manner and floated up, not giving Luo Nan a chance. Shui Lei was both anxious and angry. He looked at where Luo Nan's gaze was pointing, and he saw that Luo Nan had cast his gaze toward the forest behind the curtain of darkness. How could he not know what his best friend was thinking? Shui Lei immediately said, Hey, but his mouth was clumsy at this time. He was unable to speak a reason, so he could only ask Zhang Yingying for help. "Hurry up and persuade Nanster. He wants to ride the fish and fly over." Huh! The series of unforeseen events happened far too quickly, and most of the key segments occurred on the mental plane. Zhang Yingying wasn't too clear about the changes in the situation on the viewing platform. She just felt that there was something wrong with her ears, or that Shui Lei's mouth was cramping. Luo Nan actually took the initiative to contact her just as she was confused. "Give me information on Tank." "Tank? I say." "Immediately." Luo Nan's voice wasn't loud, but it was so heavy that it made one's heart flutter. Zhang Yingying felt inexplicably weak. She mumbled, "That fellow's physical qualities are excellent. His hard body skills are especially outstanding. He can temporarily increase his defensive power. That's all." "Strong defensive power, huh?" Luo Nan looked as if he understood something. "What's going on over there?" "Hey, Luo Nan." Before Zhang Yingying could finish speaking, a terrifying deep howl rumbled over from the other side. Her heart suddenly clenched, and she felt her blood sink. Her brain went dizzy, and her entire body felt bad. She practically cut off the communication by reflex. Her body felt better this way, But when she came to her senses, she could only look at the disconnected communication display and slap her head. On the viewing platform, the devil ray rose 7 to 8 meters into the air. It suddenly opened its enormous mouth, and at the same time, its lower abdomen had 2 rows and 4 rows. A total of 8 cracks opened up. This was where the gills of a normal devil ray should be. However, after the mutation, there were already some mutations. Right now, traces of the flesh and blood of the fish in the crystal pillars still remained on the gills. The vicious aura of a mutant was displayed to the fullest. A low-frequency howl rang out from the gap between its enormous mouth and its gills. The deep howl spread in all directions under the push of the enormous sound pressure. It was like a heavy train passing by, rumbling and vibrating. It caused every frame structure and protective glass on the viewing platform to tremble violently. It was like an earthquake had just happened. However, this deep howl only lasted for less than 5 seconds before the platform suddenly went silent. It did not stop, but the frequency of the sound waves had already sunk below the boundary of 20 Hz, entering the domain of infrasonic waves. The sound waves conducted in the air did not directly affect Snake Tongue, but they still left her stunned. Infrasonic waves had powerful penetrative power, and they transmitted information accurately. Many life forms in the ocean used them to sense danger and determine direction. However, it was relatively rare to see a mutant that could actively emit powerful infrasonic waves. In theory, the Devil Ray was an enormous mutant. Its pure fleshly strength was already close to A rank, and its fleshly body was flexible and tough. As long as it was used properly, it could use its empty cavity to emit sound. High and low frequencies were not difficult. It was understandable. The crux of the matter was how it was used. Perhaps the Devil Ray possessed the physical conditions to release shockingly powerful infrasound waves, but this was definitely not its innate ability. Even after it had mutated, it was still the same. Otherwise, its method of hunting for food would have undergone an astonishing change. The management of Cloud City Water Village would not have placed such a dangerous creature in the Crystal Pillar. In other words, after Luo Nan controlled the Devil Ray, he reshuffled the application of its power. How did Luo Nan do this? And what was he using infrasonic waves for? Several questions piled up one after another, merging with the ominous dark clouds in front of her. It made Snake Tongue feel worse and worse. Her train of thought was inevitably affected by the successive changes, and she began to deviate. But at this moment, a substantial psychic pressure arrived, making her mind shiver. A floating curtain was set up on the viewing platform. For the sake of making sounds, the Devil Ray's enormous body was nearly upright at a 90-degree angle. Even so, the muscles of its back formed a depression, providing Luo Nan with a fulcrum to maintain balance. Luo Nan held the fin in his hand. Visually, he was still a head taller than this enormous creature. Their relative height exceeded 10 meters. He looked down from high above, like a god controlling a gremlin, overlooking the location of Snake Tongue's soul body. Luo Nan's eyes were still glistening with blood, but the dazzling lightning never extinguished. A different kind of chill seeped through the splendid radiance. Snake Tongue's mind stirred, but the arrogance within her did not allow her to continue to be controlled by others. She immediately adjusted the sound of the wind and laughed softly. "Lord Luo, the winds are strong at high altitudes. You must be careful. Or perhaps you need my help in negotiating with Tank." She suddenly cut herself off halfway through her words. The high-pitched and suppressed infrasound didn't directly destroy Snake Tongue's vocal spell. But after a period of time, she adjusted it to the most suitable frequency, and a change followed. On the viewing platform, the tourists that Luo Nan had cleared out earlier still had muddled consciousnesses, but they groaned and struggled in a daze. It was as if they were having nightmares. Snake Tongue finally figured out the true target of the infrasound. The carrier of her nightmare vine spell was suffering from the impact of the infrasound, forming a dangerous resonance in the heart and lungs. Was it going to kill indiscriminately? The nightmare vine spell was built on a human carrier. If the entire group of people died, the spell would naturally dissolve and disintegrate. But Snake Tongue had analyzed Luo Nan's personality. She didn't believe that this half-grown child would have the courage to wipe out several dozen, no, hundreds and thousands of lives in one fell swoop. It must be known that the penetrative power of infrasound was very strong. If one really found the correct frequency, then the enormous sound pressure of the mutant devil ray, supported by its near-rank power, would sweep through the viewing platform. The ordinary people on the dozens of floors above and below would probably all die. But looking at Luo Nan's posture, could it be that the destruction of his mother's work had stimulated Luo Nan to the point of losing his rationality? Snake Tongue really didn't dare to confirm this as she looked at the bloody light and interweaving lightning and fire in his eyes. A second passed, or maybe even less, before she suddenly heard Luo Nan speak. "I shouldn't waste time on you, but I need to practice." Luo Nan's straightforward narration was devoid of emotion. It displayed that Luo Nan still retained his rationality, but this bit of rational strength was unable to wrap around the restless killing intent within. Snake Tongue didn't understand what he meant by practice, but she soon discovered that Luo Nan had excellent control over the infrasound, whether it was in the intensity of the sound pressure or the range of influence. Luo Nan used a technique that Snake Tongue was completely unable to understand. Separated by a layer of devil ray, he realized this precise operation. This caused several dozen people to walk on the line between life and death, but they didn't collide with the line. Soon, the effects of this technique manifested. The resonance of the heart and lungs wasn't fatal, but it caused the blood and energy of the unconscious people to roil. It affected their nervous system functions, causing all sorts of discomfort. This resulted in chaotic thoughts and a terrible unstable state of mind while they were unconscious. Snake Tongue cried out to herself that this was bad. The main functions of the fortifications formed by the Nightmare Vine spell were to divert and suck blood. The latter, in particular, required a powerful external force to stimulate the potential of the target. Then the potential was extracted to strengthen the spell. However, Luo Nan's actions had turned the blood and energy of the person into a mess. What potential was there left? One or two wasn't a big deal, but several dozen people were all like this. Even a curse master like Snake Tongue would find it hard to control them in a short amount of time. Chapter 3:14. Snake Tongue never expected that the situation would reverse like this. Luo Nan played a beautiful domino game. Several dozen road signs fell down from the material plane. They affected each other and formed a joint force. They inconceivably and logically affected the mental plane, warping and deforming the defensive structure of the Nightmare Vine spell. The mental attack she was most vigilant against had yet to make its official appearance, but the fortifications she had built with so much effort nearly fell apart. Right now, Snake Tongue was at the center of the fortifications. Her mind was shaken, and she felt impatient. This was mostly caused by the backlash of the Nightmare Vine spell. At first, she believed that Luo Nan was going to shatter the foundation of her spell and dig open the fortifications. But after blocking 2 rounds of backlash, she felt that something was wrong. Under the attack of Luo Nan's infrasonic waves, the thick vines born from the Nightmare Vine spell did not wither and become listless. Instead, it was as if they had taken stimulants. They were restless without end. Snake Tongue was aware of her own situation. Her method of erecting fortifications was a bit of a trick. The collapse of the fortifications was fine, but the resulting backlash was truly troublesome. Luo Nan's methods and train of thought caused her heart to be on guard. "I can't stay here any longer." An intense thought of retreating arose in Snake Tongue's mind for the first time. But just as this thought was born, a powerful restraining force suddenly rose. The Nightmare Vine spell's blood-devouring intent finally found a nearby target. Snake Tongue cried out to herself that this was bad. She immediately chanted an incantation, disregarding the consequences. She wanted to disperse the out-of-control Nightmare Vine spell. But at this time, the uncomfortable feeling of being seen through became clear once more. Her clairvoyance instinctively allowed her to see Luo Nan's interweaving blood and fire. His eyes were piercingly cold. The mental attack came. It was different from the heavy hammer-like bombardment described in the intelligence report. It was a sharp blade that silently pierced through the chaotic defensive system. The attack pierced through all the defenses and pierced straight at Snake Tongue's weakest soul body. This attack didn't heavily injure Snake Tongue, but it interrupted the spell she had just prepared. It also severed the last bit of possibility for her to control the Nightmare Vine spell. But from Snake Tongue's perspective, the most fatal part was the Nightmare Vine spell's defensive system. It transformed into an invisible cage on the mental plane, trapping her within. She wouldn't be able to struggle free in a short amount of time. Snake Tongue used all her strength and tried all sorts of methods. This included her most dreaded method of interfering and transforming between the mental and material planes. However, none of them worked. Instead, her soul body interfered too much with the material plane after a series of attempts. She gradually revealed herself. "Nanster, you've gone too far." Just as Shui Lei rubbed his chest and walked out from the Devil Ray's wide back, he saw a shadow appear in the open space in front of him. It was vaguely like a woman, glowing with a faint green light in the night. Upon closer inspection, that light was clearly a curtain of hair that fell to the ground. Half of it draped over the back, while the other half covered the exceptionally delicate figure of a person. Such a form was like that of a ghost or a spirit. It was so faint that its face could not be seen clearly, as if it would dissipate in the wind at any time. However, upon closer inspection, there were several tens of long strands of smoke surrounding this delicate woman. They were intertwined with each other. When they fluttered, they were like streamers of feathers, but when they were ferocious, they were like a prison cage. "This is Snake Tongue?" Shui Lei had guessed it, but he was still a little confused. He didn't know why this mysterious expert who had been fighting against them for a long time would suddenly appear, and in such a form at that. This wasn't the same as the ugly and sinister Black Beetle's mutilated body from before, okay? Snake Tongue didn't care about how she looked. Right now, there was no one else in her eyes. There was only Luo Nan. Her soul had left her body, and she had been forced to reveal herself. From her perspective, the situation had already completely collapsed. And all of this was caused by the teenager on top of the Devil Ray's head. Compared to the result, Snake Tongue was even more unable to accept the process. She didn't know at least half of the methods Luo Nan used from the moment he truly unleashed his strength. In other words, she was muddle-headed and ended up in such a state. The most absurd thing was that her and Luo Nan's soul strength were still entangled. But what was the point of this entanglement? The feeling Luo Nan gave her was that he was clearly using a single pinky finger to hook her in place. The rest of his body was casually toyed with. And this was the effect that Snake Tongue believed she could achieve. It wasn't that she had never experienced this sort of experience before, but she never thought that it would reappear on the teenager's body. This was not a reflection of strength, but a difference in insight and realm. Snake Tongue composed herself slightly. It could be said that she had suffered a crushing defeat in today's match. However, it was too early to say that she was consigned to eternal damnation. She was someone who had experienced the affairs of the world for a long time. She soon adjusted her state of mind. She no longer thought of struggling, nor did she conceal her figure. Instead, she bowed to Luo Nan, who was perched high on the Devil Ray's head, with impeccable etiquette. She used the calmest tone she could to admit, "Lord Luo, your skills are marvelous. I've lost." Luo Nan didn't give her anything aside from his ice-cold gaze. Snake Tongue stood up straight after she bowed. She raised her head slightly and locked eyes with Luo Nan's ice-cold gaze. She adopted a posture that was meaningless to her soul body, but it was more in line with etiquette and the situation. "Since I admit defeat, I won't cause any more trouble for Lord Luo. However, I hope that I can obtain a suitable treatment." Luo Nan maintained his silence, but the Nightmare Vine spell grew even more restless on the mental plane. It was the most direct response. Even on the material plane visible to the naked eye, the dark smoke surrounding Snake Tongue's soul body increased by 30%. The intertwining grew more and more obvious. Snake Tongue's mind went a bit cold, but she still tried to use communication to resolve the problem. She tossed out a bargaining chip. "Lord Luo, I can order Tank to stop right now. I'm going to kill him." Luo Nan's simple words nearly caused Snake Tongue to swallow back her words. She was stifled for a second before she responded, "Lord Luo, please don't be impulsive. I want to save your mother's precious work as soon as possible. That's the most." The whistling sound of the wind crushed Snake Tongue's words to pieces. The devil ray began to flap its pectoral fins with force. Compressed air rumbled and flowed. Its momentum was astonishing. Just like this, it soared several meters higher. It seemed as if it would leap into the sky at any moment. Luo Nan stared at Snake Tongue from an even higher position. "You've been resisting all this time. I've already wasted 2 minutes here." Snake Tongue obviously had to resist. Even if her defeat was already decided, she wouldn't allow herself to be trampled upon. Clearly, there was an enormous disparity in their understanding of each other. She couldn't help but feel her heart sink. But at this time, she saw Luo Nan close his eyes. His eyelids were still trembling. This action allowed Snake Tongue to confirm one thing. Luo Nan was certainly extremely exhausted. That made sense. How could his body endure the continuous use of such terrifying methods? Perhaps she should continue to waste time? Just as this thought stirred, Luo Nan's eyes opened. Lightning leaped within his bloody sockets. "And you're going to continue wasting time." The Nightmare Vine spell, which was used to devouring its master, fiercely contracted just as Luo Nan finished speaking. At the same time, the second wave of mental attacks arrived. Snake Tongue suffered a pincer attack. Her shadow fluctuated and warped, showing signs of disillusionment. She did her best to resist, but at the same time, she also used her glib tongue to persuade Luo Nan. "Lord Luo, it's true that I will suffer heavy injuries if you insist on going your own way. But it's just as you said. You won't have a future to speak of under the direct wear and tear of the big and small gears. Formatting theory. Coupling. Where will you go to verify these wonderful theories?" Luo Nan heard all of this clearly. He subconsciously released a hand from the devil ray's fins and gently touched his cheek. It was a bit numb. He exerted a bit of force, and there was a terrible tearing sensation. But so what? If my mother compromised for the sake of her life, then I wouldn't exist in this world. If I compromised for the sake of my mother's work, you shameless bastards, then even if I saved gear, I would still be bound to leave a stain. And you guys could come at any time. Luo Nan's voice was low and hoarse. He was practically talking to himself. This was his train of thought and thought. Actually, he didn't know if it was right or wrong. But right now, his emotions, intellect, energy, and all the other components resonated. This was what he obtained. There was no need to fake it. Snake Tongue didn't even have the time to get angry after being labeled a shameless bastard. She saw the devil ray charge up fiercely. It let out a soundless roar, and countless vine strings were released one after another. There were no substantial sound waves, but the corresponding rupture and tremble on the mental plane was like a sword cutting through 100 bowstrings and a dragon binding net. The rhythm of collapse, 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 and collapse exploded in the depths of her mind. Her ghostly body was actually involuntarily lifted into the air. Gales surged and the world spun. The Nightmare Vine spell transformed into a knot, wrapping around her as she drifted in the night wind. She was like a bird or beast that had been tied up after a hunt. Snake Tongue's mind was deep from the continuous humiliation, but her heart was also burning with poisonous flames. She shouted out Luo Nan's name for the first time. "Luo Nan, don't you regret this?" What responded to her was the sonic boom of the devil ray's wings striking the wind. In an instant, the devil ray had already flown out from the viewing platform. It entered 1,000 meters high in the sky without anything to rely on. Luo Nan occupied a position high above the devil ray's head and looked down. The heart lantern illuminated the entire region. It was hard for the darkness, the forest, and the buildings to block it. There was nothing else in Luo Nan's eyes. He only saw a small and exquisite gear embedded in the depths of the boundless forest. It was clearly shining. This was the first time Luo Nen used the coupled heart lantern to perform clairvoyance for an extended period of time. The marvelous feeling was like a gushing spring that had just erupted from the ground. Was it his heart lantern that illuminated Gear, or was it Gear's spiritual light that entered his heart? It was certainly the latter. It was the purest light within the darkness, and it was a pupil that circulated with the ripples of life. It billowed, flickered, and revolved there. It drew upon the long river of time, revealing the ancient imprints to the present. It transformed into a silent intent that silently gazed at him. This completely unreasonable thought plucked at his heartstrings. Luo Nan was a bit dazed, but he soon strove to open his eyes wide. He wanted to engrave this pupil into the bottom of his heart. However, this scene of waves of light reflecting each other only lasted for an instant. Turbid colors flipped over from within the pure luster. Thick smoke and flames smeared wantonly, willfully trampling on everything. It was as if Luo Nan's chest had been fiercely pounded by a fist. The flames burned straight into his eye sockets, bringing a long poisonous smoke. They poured into his heart and lungs, instantly transforming into a field of fire. There's a fire. The flames roiled within his internal organs. The most laughable bit of wishful thinking in his heart transformed into the poisonous smoke. Luo Nen subconsciously tightened his grip on the thick skull fin in his hand. Pain and fury that burned his heart and lungs rumbled to the top, breaking his throat and causing him to howl. Chapter 3:15. It was already night. The dark curtain of night and the flashy lights interweaved, mixing silence and restlessness together to reveal the primary colors of the city. This was originally a flourishing city that could swallow everything, but after a short 30 seconds, in a corner of the night, in a wetland jungle that had been temporarily forgotten by the majority of people, soundless thunder rumbled like the carriage of a demon god. On the small swamp lake adjacent to Gear, fish leapt up due to the flickering flames. They rushed out of the water, but in the blink of an eye, their bodies trembled and they smashed back into the water. On the shore of the lake, a sandpiper that was treading on the shallow water in search of food suddenly stood up. It staggered 2 steps forward, flapped its wings, and flew up. In less than a few seconds, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of panicked birds flew up from the forest with a clamor. Below them, foxes, badgers, mice, rabbits, and even the occasional wolf, deer, and other walking beasts began to frantically and chaotically flee. The vast majority of them were driven by the sudden collapse of the atmosphere of the jungle. Without any destination in mind, they clashed and trampled each other. Some even directly crashed into trees and fell into the water. Screams and cries rang out incessantly. In a flash, the wetland jungle turned into a hellish cauldron. The collapse of chaos rapidly spread. In this chaotic background, Gear leaned against the side of the jungle. Amidst the clanging sounds, a sturdy figure smashed through the window of the second floor. He jumped out and rolled on the ground. Without stopping, he madly ran with all his might, smashing into the depths of the jungle. An invisible and soundless shockwave covered an area of several hundred meters around Gear. Along the way, the forest was littered with dead birds and beasts. Most of them had no external injuries. Their distorted postures made one's heart palpitate. The damage of infrasound was mainly caused by resonance with the natural vibration frequencies of the brain, chest, and abdomen. This caused the nervous system to be in disorder, and the organs to distort and rupture. They could die extremely quickly, or they could die extremely miserably. Witnessing this scene, Tank, who had always regarded himself as valiant, felt a chill run down his spine. His feet ran even faster, and he charged forward in a straight line. He had to rush out of this domain of death in the shortest amount of time possible. As he madly ran, he issued a low roar from his throat. His organs squirmed, and the power of his blood and energy gurgled. With his many years of cultivation, he roused his blood and energy to form a thunderous sound. It formed its own pattern to resist the infrasound. The infrasonic waves that were forcefully suppressed came without a trace. Even though he reacted quickly, the first wave still impacted him quite a bit. Then, he had to forcefully stimulate his lungs to resist the resonance. The feeling was not pleasant, and his internal injuries were also accumulating. What's more, a profound cultivation could control the internal organs, but not the brain. Even with the thunderous defense, it was only temporary. Therefore, he could only step on the mud and water with an ashen face. Like a bear, he crashed into trees and snapped branches as he fled. He didn't dare to think of anything else. Hundreds of meters into the depths of the jungle, his body suddenly relaxed, and the invisible sound pressure finally disappeared. The tank ran for another distance before he dared to stop the thundering sound in his internal organs. However, he could not help but have blood rush up his throat, and his entire mouth was filled with a fishy smell. He spat out a mouthful of bloody foam and used the internal communications channel to contact Puppeteer. Naturally, no one responded. There was also the mysterious snake tongue. He had pulled out a mental connection, but there was no news of her either. This made Tank's mood even worse. At this moment, a communication request came from another line. Yuan Fei. This fellow was already under house arrest. It wasn't easy to make a call, but Tank didn't appreciate it at all. He roared as soon as the call connected, "What the hell is going on? Didn't you say this kid has no background? What the hell is a directional infrasonic weapon?" Yuan Fei's voice came back from the other side. "Are you out of your mind? Out of your mind, my ass?" Tank had just walked the line between life and death, and his brain had been messed up by the infrasonic waves. Right now, Tank would bite anyone he saw. Who cared who they were? He blabbered, "You Kuryan. You even scam your own people. I won't even give you a second glance even if you deliver your ass to my doorstep in the future. You really are out of your mind." Yuan Fei's voice remained calm. In Xia City, only the permanent fortifications at the edge of the wilderness are equipped with infrasonic arrays. Do you want the entire city to die with you by killing you from several hundred kilometers away? Pingjiang District, Acumen College, North Shore Jungle. Look at the way the animals die. I nearly ended up like them. Tank wanted to roar again, but he couldn't help but cough twice in his throat. He forcefully suppressed another mouthful of blood. He had no choice but to lower his voice by an octave, but he still gnashed his teeth in anger. "Also, I'll give you a piece of news. The operation team has no more credibility. Puppeteer and Snake Tongue were alive and kicking just a moment ago, torturing and extorting a confession. But in the blink of an eye, they died who knows where. Either the Xia City branch's experts have arrived, or that kid is too deep. Let me emphasize it to you a few more times. Directional infrasonic weapon. Directional infrasonic weapon. Fuck." Yuan Fei was silent for a moment before he said, "I will notify Secretary General Gong." Tank roared a few times, and his boiling brain finally calmed down a bit. He also knew that shouting was meaningless, so he said hatefully, "Now that things have come to this, there's nothing more to say. I will evacuate according to Plan C. Directly leave the city? Motherf***. Only the military has the ability to use an infrasonic weapon of mass destruction, okay? If I don't leave the city, am I supposed to wait to be a target?" Tank walked forward again. He was probably quite a distance away from gear. There was finally a bit of the aura of life here. Birds and beasts were scurrying about in panic. It was chaotic. The chaotic vitality was still vitality. It was somewhat comforting. He spat out a breath and determined his direction. He prepared to enter the dormitory area of South Bank School. No matter how deranged the military was, it was impossible for them to smash infrasonic waves into that area. Yuan Fei's voice continued to enter his ears, confirmed that all communication records have been sent to the cloud, and then destroy the terminal equipment. Tank sneered. He was just about to speak when his heart suddenly trembled. It was as if an invisible hand had directly stabbed into his heart and forcefully closed it. Tank gaped, but the words that were already in his throat completely collapsed. What replaced them was a surging blood and chi that rushed upwards with a crash. It made his brain go blank, and his ears were ringing and screaming. The infrasonic wave came again. Tank felt as if his heart was being crushed to pieces, but his surroundings were clearly quite normal. The noise of birds and beasts still entered his ears from time to time amidst the ringing in his ears. He swept his eyes over them, and they were all alive and kicking. A dense, ominous feeling bubbled up, and Tank suddenly raised his head. A pitch-black shadow covered the jungle. It was an enormous shadow that he could see with his eyes. Bird, fish, devil ray. The situation in front of him finally fused with the intermittent information from the communication channel, but what was the meaning of this? Under the pressure of the enormous shadow in the sky, the nearby birds and beasts were scared witless and desperately flew away. In fact, this was not bad. At least there was no killing intent from the infrasonic wave. However, Tank would rather return to the previous situation, where people, birds, fish, and beasts would all be equally distributed. It was not that there was no infrasonic wave now, but that it had truly completed directional restraint, and the terrifying sound pressure energy was completely directed at him. The low-frequency shock wave penetrated the branches and leaves of the forest, and also penetrated his internal organs and skull. From within, a malevolent Grim Reaper's hook appeared, probing the natural frequencies of several of his body cavities, seeking a connection. Tank's reaction was actually very fast. The moment his heart was attacked, he once again stirred up the sound of thunder. However, the problem was that no matter how he forcibly changed the resonance frequency of his internal organs, he used the sound of thunder to form its own pattern. The infrasonic wave that penetrated his skull and internal organs would correspondingly change and firmly lock onto its frequency. After such a series of changes, Tank could not bear it anymore. In particular, the area of his skull where his martial arts could not go up was continuously ravaged by a storm. After a few repetitions, the powerful impact shattered the wall of his willpower, releasing a huge amount of negative emotions. Tank was really about to collapse. Under the effect of the infrasonic wave, his body, which was a complete and harmonious whole, was torn into several conflicting pieces. His chi was in disorder, and his chi and blood were in reverse. Despite having the strength of steel, they collided and rubbed against each other, pulling each other back. This was not a powerful attack of punches, but a strangulation that wanted to tear him to pieces from the inside out. Tank! Through the communication device, Yuan Fei could not feel the pressure of the infrasonic wave that Tank was enduring, but he could hear Tank's screams clearly. Then there was the noisy sound of branches and leaves snapping, the sound of struggling and rolling, the hoarse cursing, and the sound of begging for mercy. Yuan Fei did not try to make contact again. He only calmly listened as the chaotic sounds became even more chaotic, and then abruptly stopped. He suddenly stood up and walked out of the bathroom, ignoring the indifferent watcher, and hurriedly walked in the direction he had come from. The 12th floor of Shangding Great Xia was the same as most of the areas below the 18th floor. The lighting was terrible, and they completely relied on artificial light sources for illumination. And because this floor was not a living area, not even the simulated sky light was turned on. The corridor was suffused with a pale light, and there was not the slightest hint of human presence. In the middle of the corridor, he saw the Deputy Secretary General of the headquarters, who was also the leader of this investigation team, Gong Qi. Gong Qi was a veteran of the Ability User Association. He was about to turn 100 years old, but he took good care of himself. His face was thin, and he looked like he was in his 70s, around the retirement line of a normal person. He was habitually dressed in a formal suit. His posture was upright, and he also had a good posture. At this moment, Gong Qi was standing outside a huge glass wall, coldly staring at the situation behind it. Even though he knew that Yuan Fei was walking over, he did not even spare him a glance. His face was serious and serious. But beside him, there was another centenarian. Although he was half a head shorter, he was sitting in a wheelchair, and he was all smiles. Separated by Gong Qi, he even tilted his head and smiled at Yuan Fei, looking very amiable. Yuan Fei's heart twitched when he saw the smile. His hurried footsteps unconsciously slowed down. The person in the wheelchair was Old Yu, the most veteran ability user in Xia City. He was 3 years older than Gong Qi, but he looked to be 30 years older. His hair had already fallen off, and even his eyebrows were sparse. There were only 2 or 3 long eyebrows on one side, and they hung down to the side of his cheeks. He looked a bit comical. Yuan Fei felt that the last few steps were truly difficult to endure. He walked close with great difficulty, and just as he was mulling over how to report this matter to Gong Qi, he suddenly sensed something. He saw the 5 fingers of the leader's left hand behind his back slowly rubbing together. There was a hissing sound. Chapter 316. Gong Qi was one of the first powerhouses to step into the realm of extraordinary in the Ability User Association. He was able to guess the outcome of the investigation team's operation from Yuan Fei's pace. As for the process, whether or not anyone died, or how many died, it was just a minor detail that he didn't need to pay too much attention to. Gong Qi had been an assistant secretary in headquarters for 20 years. He knew secrets and had weathered many storms, so he naturally had his own way of doing things. Even if killing intent arose in his heart, he still maintained a cold expression on the outside. He only used minute body movements to slightly adjust it. He wasn't hiding anything. Hiding was useless. Old man Yu Gang beside him might not be able to climb to the rank of extraordinary for his entire life, but he still had clear eyes and a clear heart. Pretending too much would only make him a joke. Fortunately, Yuan Fei was clever and didn't say it out loud, saving some face. Now that things had developed to this point, Gong Qi didn't feel like saying anything more to Yu Gang. He clenched his rubbing fingers and then unfolded them. He knocked on the glass wall in front of him. The matter of Quantum Corporation's complaint is more or less clear now. The structure of this girl's body and soul is peculiar. There are many coincidences with what the Water Divine General proposed all those years ago. It's very interesting. How about this? I'll take her away. She's here to recuperate. That's trust. Aren't you destroying her by sending her to your hands? At Old Man Yu's age, he did as he pleased. He spoke straightforwardly and fiercely, without any intention of being polite. Gong Qi was used to it. His eyes didn't even twitch. Headquarters conditions are always better. It's better to develop a girl's value. Old Man Yu's eyelids were already about to lose their liveliness. Only his long eyebrows slightly trembled. Develop? You've been doing business very smoothly lately. You've pretty much learned the skills of those big corporations. Gong Qi finally frowned. It's about developing. Shouldn't we give the young a platform to develop themselves? It's just a slip of the tongue. Old Man Yu, why are you so serious? Old Man Yu laughed and shook his head. A slip of the tongue? It looks like you, Secretary Gong, are old and decrepit. You should give your position to the young. I think little Yuan isn't bad. He's very perceptive and quite capable. 2 old things competing. Why did you drag me in? Yuan Fei's face twitched, but he quickly concealed his smile and bowed to Elder Yu. You must be joking, Elder Yu. The association still needs elders like Secretary General Gong and Elder Yu to be at the helm. Only then can we shelter the millions of aptitude users. Old Man Yu laughed again. 50 years ago, it was to shelter us from the wind and rain. 50 years later, it's still shelter us from the wind and rain. We can't even put up a shed. It's quite boring, don't you think? Yuan Fei immediately sealed his mouth and pretended to be dead, refusing to make a sound no matter what. I understand the attitude of the Xia City branch. Let's go back first. Gong Qi stopped arguing with Yu Gang and glanced at the glass wall with a cold expression. There, the girl was sleeping peacefully. Her breathing seemed to be faintly discernible, but it was rhythmic and consistent. He glanced at her again, then turned around and left. Old Man Yu grunted twice and said a beat later, "Shall we call it a day? I won't accompany you anymore." Gong Qi ignored him and didn't turn his head, but a string of data flashed through his mind. 2 per thousand. The timing of Quantum Corporation's quotations had always been extremely accurate. The accident investigation team had just left headquarters, and the quotations had already been placed on the desks of several big shots and secretaries of headquarters through reliable channels. 2 per thousand was a small proportion, but 8 trillion had already been invested so far. In the future, there would likely be several times more investment in this super project. Any small change would be magnified to an astronomical figure. What's more, compared to these numbers, which only had secular significance, the results of the project were far more valuable. Looking at the current situation, headquarters' focus should be tilted towards the more realistic benefits. They should do everything they could to fight for ownership of the little girl and pull her into their embrace. But from the information that came out from the Order of Justice, and Wang's decisive methods, that night clearly involved an extremely important piece of information. It was one of the ultimate secrets that headquarters had always hoped to obtain for many years. These two matters were stacked together. Which was more important? How to allocate power and resources. Headquarters had a headache. Now it looked like the Apocalypse Laboratories' arrangement of research and excavation was truly a foresight. But when things came to a head, who wouldn't want to have the best of both worlds? Gong Qi returned to his temporary residence and sat on the sofa, muttering to himself in silence. On the other side, Yuan Fei cautiously stepped forward. He still wanted to think of a few words to say, but Gong Qi was unwilling to speak with him. He said, "Leave the operation records." "You may leave." Yuan Fei let out a secret sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had seized the time to tidy things up a bit, so he wouldn't be caught blindly. He bowed and left the room. Gong Qi swept his eyes over the records. Even though he had done a preliminary combing, there were still not many valuable things inside. Headquarters had used some method to temporarily destroy the psychic wave network's functions. Correspondingly, the Xia City branch had interfered with headquarters' communication lines. It was already very difficult to ensure the operation team's internal communication. The corresponding data uploading was a bit delayed. Right now, he could only see the part where Puppeteer seized the hostage and threatened him, as well as a few words from Tank at the end. The most crucial part was blank. It could also be seen that the situation had taken a sudden turn for the worse. The situation had collapsed in an extremely short amount of time. From Gong Qi's point of view, Puppeteer, Tank, and especially Snake Tongue had strength. They were quite shrewd. How could they be swept clean in a few minutes? It didn't seem like the Xia City branch's reinforcements had arrived. At the very least, judging from Tank's shouting before his death, it was unlikely that the Xia City branch would be so ruthless. Was it really as Tank said? Was it really the military who made a move and used a directional infrasonic weapon? This toy might be very effective against Puppeteer and Tank, but Snake Tongue had come in soul form. What use would it be? Furthermore, as far as he knew, Snake Tongue was still alive and well. There was definitely something strange going on here. Gong Qi slowly rubbed his fingers. As a leader, he shouldn't have paid too much attention to these minor details. Otherwise, why would he need people like Yuan Fei and the others? The problem was that he was now involved in this matter, and the Order of Justice was racing against time. If he missed this opportunity, he would be held accountable for it. Those old fellows who had worked with him for so many years would probably be more than happy to throw the blame on his head. One less person, one more mouthful of rice. What a simple truth. The strength of rubbing his fingers increased a bit. Gong Qi closed his eyes amidst the low hissing sounds. He seemed to be deep in thought, but he also seemed to be dozing off. Approximately 5 minutes later, his eyes faintly opened. His thoughts were like smoke, dissolving into the void and sinking into the depths of the mental plane. Before he could finish, two thoughts suddenly cut through the air. One was as tight as a heavenly net, and the other was as tyrannical as a towering cliff. The former sealed and imprisoned all thoughts, but the latter, intentionally or unintentionally, suppressed the lofty momentum and made slight contact with Gong Qi's divine will. Gong Qi let out a muffled groan. His complexion turned a bit dark, but he didn't continue. He returned to his expressionless state. Today, he had been enduring, calculating, and pondering. All the reasons were empty. In the end, he was still under someone else's control. Ouyang Chen was a homebody who wholeheartedly focused on research, but not only was Wu Mainyang rather ambitious, her thoughts were even more unfathomable. The confluence of two extraordinaries meant that Xia City was already under a separatist regime. Sure enough, his mission this time was a hot potato. Who could he blame for this? Who told him to act too hastily in recent years? He left those old fellows with a handle to use against him? He was old, and time waited for no one. Gong Qi calmed his mind and no longer thought about it. He contacted Yuan Fei. Have the private plane get ready. We're going back tomorrow. Yuan Fei was very surprised. Secretary General Gong? Gong Qi didn't say much. He simply hung up and closed his eyes, resuming his dozing state. But his mind was still active. It went inward and not outward, diving down layer by layer. He had suffered a hidden loss in the conflict just now, but this collision gave him a reason to leave Xia City for a short period of time. It also provided cover for his other actions. At this moment, Gong Qi was circulating his energy within his own domain. On a plane that bystanders couldn't see, there was a fine gauze slowly unfurling like a hanging curtain. The gauze of silence. The gauze of silence. Once he used this, he would have to spend a lot of effort to clean up the loose ends. Gong Qi laughed soundlessly. He concentrated his thoughts in the empty space in the middle of the gauze curtain and wrote words out of thin air. Is it safe? The words turned into smoke as soon as they formed. It was the same momentum as when his thoughts entered the void just now. But this time, it didn't draw the interception of the two extraordinaries. The moment the smoke touched the gauze curtain, it completely fused into it. Not a shred of it leaked out. Gong Qi knew that this layer of smoke had already passed through the special channel of the gauze curtain. It penetrated into the polar domain, which was the deepest part of the mental plane. It advanced towards another terminal in the distance. 3 belts, 1 district, 1 domain. This was a relatively classic method of dividing the mental plane. The polar domain was located in the deepest part of the mental plane. Its name had the meaning of limit. It was deep and boundless. Even extraordinaries would find it hard to sense even the tiniest bit of information within without prior preparation. What's more, a medium like the gauze of silence was marvelous beyond compare. Gong Qi was quite confident that he could hide it from the attention of 2 extraordinaries. He quietly waited. 2 minutes passed, and suddenly a wisp of smoke turned into a diagram that seemed to be connected yet not connected. It was like a mocking ghost face appearing in the center of the gauze curtain. This was a symbol commonly used in secret curse techniques. It had the meaning of ambushing and plotting, but the image of the diagram itself was perhaps more suited to the mood of the person on the other side. If it weren't for the fact that this method of communication was too strenuous, the other side would certainly have used even sharper words to forcefully retort back. That's right. Among the promised rewards, there was this sort of hidden door. The other side definitely harbored ill intentions. What's more, his reputation in headquarters was truly a mess. It was normal for the other side to be angry. Gong Qi didn't care. The difference between an extraordinary and a B-rank curse master was like the difference between heaven and earth. It allowed him to ignore the vast majority of hatred, especially when the other side's situation was certainly terrible. Besides, since they were willing to reply, didn't they have to admit defeat? Even if they didn't admit defeat, it wouldn't make a difference. Snake Tongue's slender and delicate appearance flitted through his mind. Her gloomy and cold temperament was rarely seen. The corner of Gong Qi's mouth twitched, and he left behind a new mark in the center of the gauze curtain. This time, it wasn't limited text. Rather, it was like Snake Tongue, a curse symbol that carried a special meaning. Even though he had already simplified it to the extreme, the structure was still layered and crisscrossed. It took a total of 12 cycles before it successively transformed into smoke and was sent out through the gauze curtain of silence. In the end, he thought for a moment and sent out some comforting words. "I'll fake my death for 10 days and return you a new life." Gong Qi sneered in his heart as he watched the last bit of smoke enter the gauze curtain. Soon after, he dispersed the strange object with a wave of his hand. He really did fake his nap to rest. For the quickest and most accurate novel reading, please visit Chapter 317. Huff, huff, I'm dead tired. Papercut sprinted madly all the way into the swamp jungle. His slightly plump body appeared even more sluggish. This damned Acumen College. flying cars were completely banned. Forcibly entering the system would shut down the car, and he was chased by the school's security. He didn't have a smooth journey this entire time. Originally, he was rushing to Ocean Sky Cloud City to provide assistance. He was already in the elevator when he received news that Luo Nan was riding a fish and flying toward Acumen College. He could only turn around and give chase. He ran to the North Shore jungle with great difficulty, but the red alert that had been pressing the entire way had fallen to the normal level. This meant that the emergency situation was over. He was only here to clean up the mess. However, it seemed that cleaning up would be quite difficult. Papercut grinned the moment he entered the jungle. This place had truly exploded. Birds and beasts fled in chaos. Feces and urine flowed everywhere, and the bitter aura of death that assaulted his face nearly made him stumble. He couldn't see too clearly in the darkness, but he could see the corpses of birds and beasts everywhere. This would probably make the nearby ecological research institutes cry themselves to death. But none of this could compare to the large flying fish that danced and spiraled in the air above the jungle, spitting water from its mouth. It was even more shocking and bewildering. A mutant devil ray? Papercut knew about this thing. He had specifically run over to take a look when it was moved to the crystal pillar of Ocean Sky Cloud City. But no one told him that this thing could be used as a firefighting helicopter. He held his neck high, his eyes hurting from looking at it. "Watch where you're going. You're going to crash into a tree." A cold voice rang in his ear, scaring Papercut. Luckily, he quickly recognized the other's voice, especially the extremely eye-catching red jacket in the darkness. "Red Fox, you're here. 5 minutes earlier than you." Papercut sighed. "You caught up to me. I came here for nothing. Is there anything else you need help with?" "Yes, put out the fire. But do you have the lung capacity of that fish?" I'm saying..." Red Fox's face couldn't be seen clearly in the darkness, but the mocking intent was very clear. This was his usual style. As for the investigation team, they're just clowns. Their corpses are strewn on the ground. They're just short of being turned into ashes. If I go over now, what else can I do but shout "Long live that person"? Oh yes, the Emperor of Acting Tough is rebroadcasting again. Shoei Channel 3, have you seen it? Papercut finally discovered that this new friend of his had some emotional issues. Before the incident at Frost River Reality, the two of them could only be considered acquaintances nodding at each other. However, they had stood on the same side many times during that operation. Regardless of whether it was correct or not, they had become familiar with each other. After that, they drank 2 more times and established a friendship. Papercut knew that Red Fox had a stubborn temperament. When he saw things, he would go to the extreme. The more he held it in, the worse it would get. Papercut rubbed his forehead and laughed foolishly, wiping off his sweaty hands. What did Boss Luo do this time? A bunch of people rushed over in a hurry, and they all became funeral arrangements. "Hey, look at my mouth." Just as he was about to say something, he heard the Red Fox sneer. "That's right, it's to take care of the aftermath." As he spoke, Red Fox raised his chin, indicating for Papercut to look to the side. Papercut had actually seen the corpse over there a long time ago. He was able to deduce that it was Tank, a member of Headquarters' Accident Investigation Team. He was famous for being a hard body expert. There were hundreds of thousands of ability users in the world. Those who could make a name for themselves were not ordinary people. But now, this rather famous character had died a violent death in the swamp jungle. It made one sigh with regret. Damn, who is this? Papercut carefully sized up the corpse. His forehead felt numb. He knew rationally that this was definitely Tank, but the scene that entered his eyes had a huge impact. Papercut's mouth drew back. He didn't know what expression to make. This is Tank? From the real-time intelligence, Papercut knew that Tank was a thick and sturdy man. His hard body was valiant, and his frontal defensive abilities were especially outstanding. It was said that if he was prepared, he could withstand 3 consecutive strikes from a 12.7mm heavy sniper rifle. However, what the hell was this pile of fat and rotten dead flesh? What Papercut saw was a super fat man that was 2 or 3 times heavier than him. All the muscles on his swollen face were twisted. It was a pile of dead flesh. From top to bottom, the skin was lacerated and there was not a single piece of intact tissue to be seen. There were even bones that were fragmented. Many of them had pierced through the layer of flesh, and the bones were horribly exposed. With this appearance, all that was left was to prepare a large pot and boil it. Even if it was torture, it wouldn't be like this without dozens of hours of torture. Red Fox walked over unhurriedly. He held a branch in his hand and poked at the corpse's shoulder. When I escaped from Who City, I gave him a blow in the wilderness. Papercut turned his head in shock. Red Fox didn't react at all to Papercut's gaze. He minded his own business and poked at the corpse with the branch. Originally, this blow was aimed at the back of his heart, but he turned around very quickly. I poked here from the front and broke the dagger. I even watched as he punched Old Five's head. Papercut opened his mouth and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he interjected, "Headquarters personally sent someone to deal with the matter in Who City? It's this person but not this identity. Back then, he was just the sacred protector of a small order. Who knows when he joined the society? My dagger has a tattoo mark. It can be sensed from 5 kilometers away. It can last for up to 10 years. It can't be wrong." Red Fox's voice grew softer and softer, but the darkness couldn't block his cold smile. "I originally wanted to seize the opportunity to strike again from here. Now, it seems that the difficulty has been greatly reduced. It was unknown when, but his other hand had taken out a pitch-black dagger. The blade pointed downwards. He loosened his 5 fingers, and the dagger fell in a straight line. It pierced into the swollen and soft dead flesh of the corpse, sinking all the way down to the hilt. For a moment, Papercut thought that Red Fox had made a move, torturing Tank to death to vent his anger. But after some more thought, he knew that wasn't right. He looked at Red Fox's depressed mood and wanted to say some words of comfort, but he didn't know where to start. In the end, he could only ask in a low voice, "Did Boss Luo do it?" "Humph. How did he do it?" "I heard the secretary say that it was an infrasound." "That's what I told her. The corpses of the birds and beasts beside you all died the same way. Even I almost died." Papercut discovered that Red Fox's complexion wasn't too healthy. It was pale and stiff. It turned out that he had suffered internal injuries. Red Fox didn't mind. He picked up the dagger once more and sheathed it. It was said to be a directional infrasound weapon, but no matter how directional it was still a large-scale attack. After discovering Tank's true identity, Red Fox was driven by hatred. He wanted to get close and give Tank a ruthless blow. He forcefully endured the damage of the infrasound to hide in the shadows. He deserved to be affected. But in the end, he made a mistake. Papercut had a faint guess, but it wasn't good to speak of such things in the open. He could only scratch his head and point at Tank's swollen corpse. "Is this fellow also an infrasound weapon?" Red Fox shrugged. "God knows." Papercut was unable to figure it out. He could only take a few photos and record a video. Right now, he had already confirmed that Red Fox would rather hide in the forest and feel the cold wind than go meet Luonen face to face. Red Fox had a different feeling in his heart. There was nothing to say about this sort of thing. It was fine as long as he forcefully reversed the situation. He sighed. Who cares how he did it? It's fine as long as he's fine. In any case, he's right there. If there's something he doesn't understand, he can just ask. "Oh right, are you sure he's fine? I'm half his master right now." "Do you want him to apologize to you? Get lost." Red Fox flung his hands, wanting to leave, but he was forcefully pulled back by Papercut. "Don't. I heard that the kid got himself into a state of serious injuries. His eyes are about to go blind. I don't know a thing about emergency treatment. If you don't help, then I can only use paper ash to paste it. You go paste it. It's none of my business. Let's go, let's go. Hey, that devil Ray doesn't eat people, right? Who knows? Would you eat it if I gave you an infrasound?" Holy crap. The two pulled and pulled, but in the end, they still headed in the direction of Gear. When they entered the interior of Gear, the devil ray in the sky didn't eat them, nor did it give them an infrasound. It turned a complete blind eye to them. It just sucked in water from the small lake next to Gear, turning it into a water cannon that smashed into the ignition point upstairs. The so-called water cannon was a true artillery shell made of water. The Devil Ray went through the special effects of its oral cavity and cheek cavity to condense a large amount of lake water into an extremely solid ball of water. It smashed in through the gaps in the window. It was fast and accurate. Its fire-extinguishing effect was top-notch. Papercut clicked his tongue in wonder, but his head hurt. This fellow has become a spirit. Isn't it too high profile? If we were to be photographed, the internet would explode. Red Fox didn't speak. He took the lead and stepped into the interior of Gear. At this time, the power of water and fire had been tossed about on every floor. It was a scene of chaos. It was extremely dismal. They saw a few multifunctional robots along the way. They looked like they had the ability to put out fires, but they had all been smashed to smithereens. This was clearly the handiwork of Tank. However, the fate of this instigator was 10 times more miserable than these robots. "Nanster, where are you?" Papercut called out twice, but no one responded. He found it very strange. He was even more worried. Did something happen again? Underground. Red Fox actually became the one leading the way. He brought Papercut through the fire escape passageway without hesitation. Cough. The structure here is quite unique. I heard that his mother designed and built it single-handedly. What a pity. Papercut forcefully changed his words, but in the end, he didn't expose Red Fox. It was clear that Red Fox had followed Luo Nan all the way. He only returned to the forest after confirming Luo Nan's whereabouts. Papercut could tell from that night at Frost River Reality that Red Fox became very attentive after resolving his misunderstanding of Luo Nan. Perhaps he was a bit jealous, but there was even more envy and substitution. Perhaps he was thinking that if Hu City was Xia City instead of Hu City. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. Red Fox and Papercut walked all the way to the central control room. They saw the same mess. When Tank wreaked havoc, the first thing he destroyed was the central system. He was really thorough. He was careless. Papercut sighed as he watched. There were a few times when he had come here to teach Luo Nan. He had heard Luo Nan mention that this place had a very strict security system, but Luo Nan didn't really like it. After Luo Nan settled in Gear, he sealed off the system. The remaining methods of authority control were like thin paper in front of a professional destroyer like Tank, who had no scruples whatsoever. They were completely ineffective. Red Fox was thinking of something else. Where is he? He had quietly tailed Luo Nan just now. He saw Luo Nan stay in the central control room, attempting to use his wristband to authorize the recovery of the system's operation. Red Fox was unable to get away for a time, so he left with ease. But now, the central control room was completely empty. Luo Nan was gone. Snake Tongue, who had been imprisoned by Luo Nan, was gone as well. For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 318. Papercut's gaze circled the central control room. Nanster isn't here? He walked into the room as he spoke, but he was stopped by Red Fox just as he took a step. Wait a moment. Red Fox's eyes were cold and clear. His footsteps were soundless as he entered the central control room. His nose trembled slightly as he distinguished the smells in the room. He even went to the elevator and other entrances and exits to investigate. Luo Nan's body reeked of blood due to his eye injury. Red Fox's rigorously trained nose was enough to distinguish where he went. However, Red Fox's expression grew uglier after he circled inside and out. He was unable to understand the information displayed by the smells. There are no signs of him going out. There are no traces of the elevator or the security door. He didn't go out from there. Papercut blinked and turned to look in the direction they came from. Smells don't show the direction. Nanster also came from here last time. Did he go back the way he came? I can tell. Red Fox didn't even raise his head. He walked to the operating console. This place should have been the core of the entire building, but now it had become a massive garbage dump. It had been completely destroyed by the tank. Red Fox tried to restore the scene. He sized up the operating console that had become scrap metal and quickly discovered an abnormal situation. An enormous amount of electricity had just passed through a certain area of the garbage dump. Since the operating console was destroyed, the electrical resistance was extremely high, leading to traces of erosion. However, there were no wires or the like here. Papercut mumbled to himself as he was pondering, disappeared into thin air? It doesn't seem like something happened. As he spoke, the paperman he controlled bounced outside the building. He extended his sensory range and confirmed that the Devil Ray was still obediently acting as a firefighting helicopter. There was nothing strange about it. Should I contact the secretary? Red Fox's expression turned even worse, but he didn't object. Papercut had just raised his wrist when an electronic beep rang in his ears. The corresponding thoughts found a place to go. Soon, a kaleidoscope of information connected with his consciousness. He felt livelier all of a sudden. After a lot of trouble, the psychic wave network was finally rebooted. Papercut had long since gotten used to having the Hexaear by his side during his years in Xia City. He could enter the psychic wave network at any time. His mind immediately relaxed. He searched his friend list in the first instance and shockingly saw Luo Nan was online. The tetrahedron avatar was extremely eye-catching. "Hey, Nanster, where are you?" Papercut called out. The Red Fox suddenly turned his head and stared at him. As for Luo Nan, he was silent for a moment. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then a strange noise rang out, forming a disturbance. It made Papercut believe that something was going to happen to the psychic wave network. Luckily, the static soon disappeared and Luo Nan's voice rang out. "I'm here." Wait a moment. These words sounded a bit hoarse and floaty. Papercut was stunned when he heard them. He hurriedly asked, "Are you okay?" "It's fine," Luo Nan responded in a hoarse voice. She could feel that there was a bit of a problem with his mood. Red Fox couldn't stand this sort of pointless conversation. He also connected to the psychic wave network and bluntly asked, "What about Snake Tongue?" "Suicide." Red Fox and Papercut looked at each other. Luo Nan had no intention of explaining further. He asked them in reply, "You guys are in the central control room. Everything is fine over there, right?" "It's all right." Before he finished speaking, another person requested to be connected to the call, and it wasn't just one person, but several people. Yueyin, Zhang Yinging, Cragburst, Bamboo Pole, Octopus. Even Bai Xinyan came to join in on the fun. Practically all the ability users that Luo Nan knew contacted him like a swarm of bees. Luo Nan never expected that he would have this sort of popularity. He wasn't good at this sort of situation, and he hoped for a quiet environment, especially right now. Luckily, the other side was aware of this sort of situation. Yueyin immediately took the lead and established an internal channel. She pulled in all the relevant personnel and switched to message mode. Only she, the creator of the channel, retained her voice to ask questions on behalf of everyone else. "Mr. Luo, how is your body? How are your eyes?" As Yueyin spoke, all sorts of words rapidly flooded the internal channel interface. It felt even livelier than the voice mode. Luo Nan just responded with a low and hoarse voice, "I'm fine. I can see." "Mr. Luo, I don't recommend that you stay in gear for too long. Someone has already posted photos and videos of the Devil Ray flying into the sky online. The activity in the northern jungle is too big. We need professionals to deal with the aftermath." Yueyin maintained a calm and rational attitude from beginning to end. She could more or less guess Luo Nan's thoughts. She added, "I already notified the firefighters to rush over there 10 minutes ago. They should be here soon." "I know." Luo Nan's mood was subtle, but his response was straightforward, "I'll leave immediately. It's fine if Mr. Luo returns to Cloud City Water Village. The facilities of the Sacred Heart Hospital here are quite complete." "Okay." Luo Nan's response grew more and more brief. He went offline right after his reply. It was clear that he didn't want to say anything more. This attitude made the people in the internal channel very baffled. "What's wrong? Are you angry?" Anyone would be angry after being tormented by those people from headquarters. Are you sure it's not because of a bunch of powerless idiots? Hey! Hey! Think about yourself. Is it a stress reaction syndrome? He's shocked and angry, and he even killed people. Black Beetle, Puppeteer, Tank, and Snake Tongue. A total of 4 lives. Oh, has he ever killed anyone before? I think he hasn't. Zhang Yingying wasn't too sure. Papercut didn't say a word at this time. He just uploaded a few pictures. They were all displays of Tank's corpse from various angles. Red Fox annotated, Boss Luo's masterpiece. Zhang Yingying sent a dumbstruck emoji and activated the bullet screen effect. She slid from right to left. The others followed one after another. A series of sluggish and confused emojis slid across the corpse pictures. Luonen didn't care what the others said about him. After ending the call, he maintained his original posture. He opened his eyes wide, ignoring the pain in his eye sockets that was about to go numb. He looked around his surroundings. The ring-shaped space, the ring-shaped chair, the wall lamp, the bookshelf, the footstool, and other arrangements were arranged. This narrow space created a comfortable and calm atmosphere. This was none other than the tree-hole cabin on the withered tree sandbar. Luo Nan looked at the furnishings in the room blankly, then he looked at his own hands. Several seconds later, he suddenly stood up. He supported himself against the slightly damp tree wall and walked up the stone steps shakily. He arrived at the upper level of the treehouse. In front of the viewing window, the scroll window spread out to both sides. The darkness inside and outside quickly converged together, attempting to drown out all existence. Luo Nan could still see that the withered tree sandbar and gear were separated by a distance of 500 to 600 meters. From this angle, gear was like an unfinished painting. Only a portion of the dark silhouette could be seen. 1 or 2 spots of fire that had yet to be completely extinguished were still flashing. How did he get here? What happened in between? What did he see? Actually, Luo Nen wasn't in a rush to obtain the ultimate answer. He wanted to talk about everything he had just experienced to others. He wanted to discuss it, big and small. He wanted to talk about it for as long as he wanted. But the current situation determined that there was no such person. He could only silently gaze at gear. He watched as this building silently towered in the long river of time, revealing its simplest and most insignificant side to the people of the world. At this time, the rumble of a real firefighting helicopter could be heard from the distant night sky. On the psychic wave network, Hiyuan knew that Luo Nan had logged off, but she still left a message to remind him. She wanted him to meet up with Red Fox and Papercut as soon as possible. She also wanted him to do his best to hide the Devil Ray and meet up with them at Cloud City Water Village. Luo Nen didn't reply. His gaze lingered on gear. His mind seemed to be clear yet not clear. Coupling theory could explain what he had encountered, but pure theory was ultimately unable to fully display the entirety of a great work of art. It was rigorous. It was magical. It was beautiful. Most importantly, it was his mother's work, and I was only able to glimpse one side of it. It shouldn't be like this. Luo Nan's body leaned forward, his head already sticking out of the viewing window. The autumn night wind was wrapped in ash and the fishy smell of the jungle. It pounced into his nose. It was clearly ice, but a fiery stimulation penetrated straight into his brain. His emotions, his impulses, were hard to suppress. Luo Nan's hands tightly gripped the bottom edge of the viewing window. His thoughts stirred, and the Devil Ray that was drawing water from the small lake not too far away immediately gave up on its work. Its pectoral fins and wings flapped lightly, and its enormous body arrived above the submerged sandbar. It leaned against the edge of the withered tree. Go! Luo Nen let out a low shout and exerted force. He actually let his body leap out of the viewing window and fall to the edge of the Devil Ray's pectoral fins. His long wings took advantage of the situation to fold slightly, allowing his body to slide all the way to the flat back of the large fish. The viewing window silently closed, restoring the appearance of the withered tree. Luo Nen did his best to stand up, but his legs were still a bit weak. He nearly fell down again. Fortunately, The Devil Ray's tough body gave him a timely elastic support. Luo Nen didn't wait for his balance to be completely restored. He staggered forward until he arrived at the head of the Devil Ray. He grabbed a pair of flipped-up cephalic fins, and only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. He spoke softly. Find the best angle. The Devil Ray let out a deep cry, and the whistling air currents broke a few branches of the withered tree. Its enormous body swam upward, reaching a height of over 100 meters in the blink of an eye. Finally, his unusual actions attracted the attention of others. Papercut's shouts seemed to come from the jungle. There were people shouting and reminding in the hexaear and the wristband. Luo Nen didn't respond at all. He just looked at the sky. The Pingjiang district where the academy was located was part of Xia City's specially designated educational function district. Even though the skyscrapers of Cloud City Water Village towered into the clouds, this district was still one of the areas with the lowest average building heights. The distribution of air traffic was relatively sparse. Looking up, one's field of view was actually quite wide. The weather tonight was pretty good. A few stars impatiently broke through the light pollution of the city and appeared in the corners of the horizon. But as the Devil Ray flew upward, the cold wind assaulted Luo Nan's face. In Luo Nan's mind, in his eyes, and in his ears, there was a different scene. It was the surging mist and ice crystals. It was the astral winds that roared like dragons. It was the vast land of a fiery hell. It was a marvelous world that Luo Nan had never imagined in his 16 years of life. It was dangerous and deadly, yet it possessed the allure of a poppy flower. Luo Nan was practically unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. Then the tall body of the Devil Ray returned to normal, and it began to circle in the sky. It was already over 1,000 meters in altitude. Looking down from high above, one could see the rotation of heaven and earth, the meandering rivers, the dark void, and the light pollution of the city painting the background. It formed a dark and turbid and oppressive scene that flooded the horizon. Millions and millions of living beings came and went, either numb or wantonly, spilling the heat of life. Luo Nan had never truly understood this city. Right now, Xia City was merely the background of his existence. What he paid attention to was just an insignificant point beneath this background. Gears. From Luo Nan's perspective, this was the only place that was pure and clear. No matter how chaotic the background elements were, as long as he approached this place, the visible and invisible order, the visible and invisible gears, crisscrossed between heaven and earth. They converged and revolved around the marvelous orifice, slowly revolving. Rigorous, mystical, beautiful. Reality. Luo Nan stared blankly at this soul-shaking gorgeous scene. It was possible that he was the only one who understood this scene. His self-consciousness seemed to operate along with it, becoming a part of the invisible and grand order. It expanded outwards layer by layer, combing through all the living things of heaven and earth that he could sense. So he knew that within a range of several dozen kilometers, practically all the high-definition cameras on the tall buildings in the area had turned to look at him. There were also high-altitude ships, and there might even be orbiting satellites at an altitude of several hundred kilometers. They locked onto the night sky where he stood, staring coldly at him. As for the mental senses, strands and strands of them spread out from every mental plane. It wasn't just one or two. It was unknown how many people used various methods to pay attention to this part of the world, to pay attention to his every movement. But compared to the millions and millions of residents of Xia City, compared to the billions and billions of living beings of the world, what did this amount to? Knowledge was order. Ignorance was disorder. The information of disorder was like an illusion. It melted and disintegrated within the glowing mist of this enormous metropolis. It was like that figure, that name, that soul. The pride that surged within Luo Nan's heart had no place to go. Thousands and thousands of words were needed to narrate her fantastic thoughts and her great accomplishments to the world. The ambiguity of a few words could be tens of thousands of kilometers. Who could confide in the boundless world? Who could understand? Could it be that it was the crazy grandpa from the sanatorium? In the end, It's just me. Right now, it's just me. It's just me. The Devil Ray suddenly dove down from 1,000 meters in the air, sensing Luo Nan's mood. Its enormous flat body seemed to be tied by long incorporeal threads of order. It transformed into a bizarre and spectacular giant kite, revolving around the center and rapidly spiraling. Great winds howled, and Luo Nan's eyes burned hot. His field of vision warped. Only the self-rotating gear revolved around time, vaguely like a billowing pupil. It was like the center of the world, the source of order. All living things in the world merged within it, linking and coupling with his thoughts. Boom! The vast river of stars and millions of stars faintly trembled within the surging storm of emotions. The millions and millions of starlight were like water droplets, turning into a river and an ocean in the blink of an eye. The surging soul strength burst the external neuron, overflowing in the blink of an eye. It was like a great river bursting through its dike as it rushed downwards. It was this rush that brought the two gears of different sizes up. It was like the waves of a cart beating against the water, finding an opportunity to rotate in sync. Energy rubbed, lightning burst forth, crisscrossing and weaving. In the blink of an eye, it was impossible to remember how many there were. Luo Nan's blood and energy surged. Was it pain or excitement? How could he experience it? He could only let the surging emotions push him as he tore his throat and screamed. There were no misgivings. There were no considerations. There were only the purest emotions mixed with lightning to rumble on the mental plane. Mom! The melancholy sound of thunder crushed through the void. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.